Welcome back. This is Fandom Empire Live. It is Tuesday, February the 4th, 2025. That feels weird to say. I was reminded by an old friend of Johnny, mine and Johnny's, dating back to our school days, that him and I went to see Revenge of the Sith almost 20 years ago. Oof. We are here. We're using new software. I'm going to rant a little off the top here about streaming hosts. StreamYard's decided they were going to drastically increase their price. We're not talking like a $5 or $10 hike. We're talking like a $20 American hike. And I'm Canadian. So that's significantly more in Canadian dollars. And that was the end of our time on StreamYards. If you're watching the show now, please take a moment to leave a comment in the chat, even just a thumbs up or something to see, so we can see, anyways, if our chat is, is that showing on the stream? What's up, guys? Yeet. Johnny, can you check to see if this is showing up on our YouTube stream, or is it just us seeing it there? This will be an exercise this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So bear with us, but we got a ton of content. We are talking. What the fuck are we talking again tonight? Scream 7.
It is showing on screen.
Jurassic World Rebirth. Fantastic Four. Star Wars. Rumble Fallout. Jam-packed night here. Looking forward to diving into some of it. But again, it's showing up on, so everybody can see it. You guys can let us know if you want it there, if you want it down. My guess is you guys are seeing double then. It doesn't matter if it's there for us or not. I can look on the side. I think
we have it there anyway on our own panel.
Oh, you guys have it there too on the right-hand side? Okay, so it's not like you guys can't see it. So yeah, and you know what? I highly recommend any content creator. Again, this is going off just a few hours using this to take a peek at Restream because the prices are way more fair. But like me, you probably don't want to put the time into learning new software, especially after using the same thing for nearly half a decade. First up, Johnny, what's going on, man? Long time no see. Kind of, not really. We were together on the weekend. Doesn't happen often anymore.
It's only been 3 days IRL and a week digitally, but hey, long time.
It's been a very long time, yes, for sure. What's going on, Randy?
No, not a whole lot. The past couple of days, it felt like an entire week plus. I feel like it should be later in the week, but that's what happens at work sometimes. You get so bogged down and so busy that it's just, it's draining, but being here just kind of always helps offset that. Yeah,
we got a ton coming up. We still need to sit down and figure out how we're going to do our Andor rewatch. Andor season 2 is April 20-something, 22nd, I think, which must mean Star Wars Celebrations just before that.
Yeah, the 18th.
18th. So, which is probably when we're going to see the official announcement about the Levy Gosling thing and more details. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now. Rumble weekend just passed. We had the birthday party for my little guy who's 5 now, and we went out and did some things. And the little guy is 5 now. The other guy is 16 and was beside Johnny on the weekend, and that was.
Can I just point out the absurdity that your teenage son can grow a better mustache than you?
Oh, I can grow a better mustache than this. I don't like them. Jade hates when I shave it, but I don't mind, the chin stuff, but the mustache, try to keep it thin. Don't like the bushiness at all. It's funny. An old friend of ours, Stephanie, commented, "Wow, it's crazy that you have."
That's when I realized just how drastic it was. Like, I mean, I've noticed before, but it's like until you actually look at that picture and you realize it's thicker than your mustache. It's like that's when it's like, well, no, hold on a minute, that ain't right.
Yeah, time moves all too fast in this world. But yeah, if you're tuning in, thank you. We're going to get back to regular content creation. It's not just going to be on Tuesdays either. You're going to see some of us pop up here and there whenever we can. I know there's some stuff I want to do with Johnny, stuff I want to do with Randy, and other people too. Tommy and I still want to continue our Supernatural rewatch series. There's a lot going on. Just so many things to get to. Dustin, let's see how this one looks. Oh, it looks very different. Dustin says, I want to see a proper fight between a T-Rex and a Spinosaurus, not the tease we got in JP3. I also, I get Rexy is probably in this movie, but how damn old is that T-Rex at this point? We're going to get into that, just not first. Randy, did I intro you? I can't remember.
You did.
Fucking everywhere. But yeah, so if you want to support the channel, I always encourage you to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. No new content up there now, so I would advise waiting a couple of weeks. If you have your own channel, feel free to check in on sponsoring us. Big shout out to Ryan at Collignation, Jason over at Backtrack Cinema, Jesse at Jesse Storytime Spectacular, and our buddy Mr. Matt Whitfield, who is he around? I had mentioned to him that we were going live tonight. Let me see if I can hook Matt up with a link here, because we're talking about some things I think he will like. Oh, that's not it. Does it give you guys the option to invite anybody?
To here or from here?
To here, yeah.
Not specifically invite options, no.
Let's see. Copy link. There he is. Did you both have to create an account to get in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was easy. They have Google integration.
All right. Well, that's good.
I did.
JT says his beard grows like crazy, but I can't grow a mustache. I can grow the mustache, but I fucking hate it. It gets in the way. You know, I'll keep a thin one to make it look goatee-ish, but other than that, not.
I have the disadvantage of a lightly colored mustache. So it looks like there's hardly anything there, but my nose tells a very different story.
Johnny this weekend admitted that he likes, essentially bowling alley pizza better than Canadian Square Boys pizza, or at least he did on.
Well, that specific day I did anyway.
It's heartbreaking though. Square Boys used to be huge. They used to be everywhere up here.
I mean, it's a different chain than the one we grew up going to, like different location anyway.
Where'd you order? Without totally giving things away.
When we were young?
No. Now is the North End the only one now?
Yeah.
See, I used to.
We used to go to one by Blockbuster.
At least I did.
Oh, you went to a different one than I did then.
Yeah, I used to do the South End one by McDonald's.
Oh, we did the one right over by Blockbuster and Teddy's.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, Johnny's frozen. Let's see if it'll unfreeze him.
Boy.
Here we go.
There we. Nope. Maybe.
Nope.
Yes.
Nope.
No.
This is gonna be a fun night. So just it's gonna be a bit of a casual night, but we got you.
Okay.
We got you.
I'm just making sure I'm moving appropriately. Okay.
So yeah, by the way, if you have a link to the stream and you think you might know somebody who wants to tune into the show tonight, please feel free to invite them, because we're going to be talking about a bunch of cool things this evening, and we're going to start here. I believe Johnny and I were both on record forever ago saying this would probably never happen, and well, it's happened. Screams to heaven, shocking direction. Stu, not just Stu, and Roman are both returning to the franchise. Stu, obviously from the original, played by the great Matthew Lillard, aka Scooby-Doo. Shaggy, partner of Scooby-Doo. Yeah, that's a little better. News broke by Deadline that they would be returning to the franchise, and that is, I'm not going to say like oh my god, this is the most shocking thing ever or anything, because I don't think we're necessarily at that point, but it's happened. He's back. In what capacity, we don't know. But I'll say it really is starting to sort of go in all sorts of different directions here, fellas. Because not only is Stu coming back, who you could make the argument for, maybe he could have survived being stabbed all those times and the TV falling on his head. You could say maybe you could see a way that he survived that. Now, Roman, on the other hand, I forget the actor's last name. First name's Matt. He was in Scandal. Was very much dead. He got shot a bunch of times, got back up, and plugged in the head. I literally believe we see him get plugged in the forehead. It's been forever since I've seen Scream 3. And I have no fucking clue how he's back. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless it's going to be a flashback. But if he's back in a sort of some flashback or dream sequence, we know Skeet Ulrich, however you pronounce his last name, was back in 5 and 6 as part of Melissa's character. She was the daughter, and she was like, seeing him essentially, even though he wasn't really there. So is it going to be something goofy like that? I think it almost has to be with Roman. There's no way for Roman to be alive I mean, now theoretically, it could be the whole, oh my God, he had a twin brother. But I hope not. That's even worse than, someone hallucinating him, in my opinion.
I just cringed when you said that.
Right? But Scream, though, no offense to fans of the franchise, I thought 6 was fantastic for the first 2/3. I thought it was different. It felt like, the fact that it was filmed in Montreal, but the fact that they were in New York City, if you will, just made it feel different. It was more gritty. I really enjoyed it. And then they got to the last act and got fucking stupid again. So Scream has a tendency to do that. How are we feeling about this, John? I'm going to go to you first, man. Matthew Lillard, obviously well known, probably more recently known for his role in Five Nights at Freddy's. But do we think that Stu survived 1? That's been the popular fan theory for a long time, or the fact that we're getting multiple killers back? I kind of feel like this is leaning towards, no, they're dead, but someone's going to be seeing them, similar to the last 2 movies.
It's hard for me. Like, there's one of 2 ways this can go in my mind that makes a lot of. Am I still coming through? I see my camera's frozen again.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
And on our end, just so you know, I can see.
I mean, it was when I asked the question, but there's a few ways this can go. In both the sense of reality and non-reality. Like, I still, and I floated this theory some time back that maybe this Scream is gonna go meta, or more meta. Sort of like Scream 3, and I would love to have, Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley, who was Roman.
Scott Foley. I thought his name was Matt. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. That was what's confusing. It was confusing me when you said it. I'm like,
Scott Foley.
Roman was...
And he's been in more than just Scandal. I know I've seen him in other things.
Oh, he's been in all... Scott Foley is in a lot of things. But, I still would like this to be sort of like... I said some time ago that Scream 7 should be, Stab again. And I would...
That'd be so fucking... I mean...
I would love that. Like, I would love... And again, this goes back to sort of, you're a Supernatural fan, I'm a Supernatural fan. I would love this to be the French mistake of Scream movies.
I would fucking party.
Like...
give the franchise their flowers for being that ballsy.
Because it would work so well within the franchise, because we have this established ability through the Stab franchise, as the franchise inside the franchise, to be able to do something meta like this, which, pays your respects to nostalgia and not at the cost of originality. Like that's the thing for me. Like, I love nostalgia. It has its place. And, as I'm getting older and reaching the point where the nostalgia is directed at me, I like nostalgia, but I don't like nostalgia at the cost of originality, and if you're just bringing back Stu because, he didn't actually die. You just thought he did. Well, why hasn't he been mentioned in any of the last 6 movies? Like, why haven't we heard about it at some point over the course of these last 5 movies, especially when, the last 2 movies were mostly love letters to the originals as far as the killers go. Like, that's something that should have been brought up at some point during the course of, Skeet Ulrich ghost visions and, things like that. He could have mentioned Stu's actually still being alive and, whether he's like in a coma or in a vegetative state in a hospital or something. That's fine and dandy because you've acknowledged that he is in fact still alive, just not part of this because of, an actual external force that, could come back from. But to just be like, yeah, surprise, I wasn't actually dead. I faked my own death. And everyone just thought I was... Like, the world doesn't work that way. Like, it's... The suspension of disbelief, and then there's ridiculousness. That's ridiculousness. And I don't want them to go that route, which is what I'm afraid of. Roman, however, you have to go almost, either flashbacks or, Scream is a franchise where you can get away with being a bit more... meta in the sense of, you know, like Randy's cameo in after he died. You know, when you see him come back as the rules for the third part of a trilogy after he's already dead, worked because it worked for the character. You could do that easier with Stu, I think, than you can with Roman, but having him come back in some sort of new, you know, videotape or, you know, something of that effect, I'm fine with, or, you know, a vision to a character, which frankly I don't think they can do just because they did it so recently. Wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, to do that again. But you know, it's a lot easier, I think. Roman cannot be alive. There's no debate in my mind. If Roman is alive, you have officially jumped the shark, and that's it.
He never should have got back up to begin with.
I mean, I could live with that because wasn't he wearing a bulletproof vest? Like, didn't you see it when the cloak sort of opened up? You saw that he was wearing a vest, and that's when they put the bullet in his head.
Well, I feel like he gets shot a ton.
But I mean, if he's wearing a vest, it made sense, right? That's why I feel like I seem to remember seeing a vest underneath the, you know, the outfit. I could be wrong, and I could just be sort of rationalizing how he got up and then shot him in the head. But that's what I sort of felt like. They shot him in the chest. I want to say it was like 5 or 6 times, and then he got back up, and that's when Sidney put the bullet in his head. Because you can't come back from that. You know, like the rule, Randy's rules, right? That's what I thought. I seem to remember him wearing a vest, but I could be mistaken. I could be misremembering that. It has been over a year, well over a year since the last time I watched the Scream franchise when, you know, when Paramount Plus came up to Canada and it became an option for something to stream on, you know, around Halloween 2023. I watched them last. So it has been a while. I could be misremembering that, but I feel like he was wearing a vest, and that's why he got back up and took the bullet in the head. But he took a bullet between the eyes. That's it. Fade to black, story over. You don't come back from that, you know. So I mean, he can't be alive. There are ways Stu's could be alive, I guess. You know, if he's been in a coma for the last 30 years, okay. You know, he did have a TV fall on his head in an era where TVs were very large and heavy. So yeah, that I buy someone being in a coma from that for 30 years. Not being mentioned at any point in the last 5 movies since his death is a little.
I don't know if it needs to be a coma, but like he could have just been in prison, right? Like that's all you really need.
That's
like why the fuck would Nev go see him?
The only
there's so much trauma that like which one do I want to go see? The rest are dead. Do I really need to go see him? Like
the only problem with that is I feel like you would have had to have acknowledged
Sydney,
that at some point in some of these stories.
You got me on that fucking stab kick, man. Way to go.
I feel like that'd be the perfect way to do it. You know, like especially when you have the moment of Sydney walking into, you know, a place where these guys are there and they're doing lines for stab, and Sydney genuinely thinks it's Roman and Stu. Like that could be an amazing moment in the movie. You know, like because it plays on everything, you know, Sydney's own, you know, PTSD of the events, and seeing it, she'd freak out, you know, and then I think it would be an amazing thing to do because it does pay your nostalgia and it's original and it allows you to tell the story in a way that works within this franchise.
Randy, you got any take, man?
Well, it's interesting to think of bringing both actors back, obviously, and I'm with Johnny when it comes to Roman. There's no way. There's absolutely no way this dude's alive. So my guess is for him would have to be either a flashback or, you know, if you go with Johnny's idea, Scott Foley playing Scott Foley reading for the part of Roman. You know, that sort of thing. So it's interesting to have that type of nostalgia. You know, enjoy them member berries, just for the sake of nostalgia. But in terms of Stu, you're right that with TVs back then, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe he did end up in a coma or something. It's kind of his path to coming back as Stu, you know, is a little bit more feasible, it feels like, than seeing Roman again. But ultimately, clearly what they're doing right now is kind of the world tour, like the farewell world tour of trying to make sure everybody gets their time in the light again, giving the fans something special that they feel they want. And some fans do, some fans don't. Barring going the whole turning it into like almost like a supernatural route at this point, to try to keep it as grounded as possible, they're obviously going to have some sort of clever way to bring these characters in, and hopefully it's done well enough that it doesn't, jump the shark or, jump the fridge like in Crystal Skull. It's one of those where you have to tread lightly, because at today's day and age, fans are not dumb. They're highly intelligent. They pay attention to social media, everything that's going on. You don't want to insult their intelligence and really alienate fans. So obviously they have something in mind that hopefully works, and I'll be curious to see how it goes. Obviously, as someone who's only seen the first 3 films, obviously I have to catch up, but it's interesting to think that they're bringing back all these killers through, like the past 4, 5, and 6, and possibly continuing on with 7. So I'll be really curious to see if the story just kind of jives with bringing them back.
Yeah, I like 5 and 6 better than 4, but 4 has got a lot of character actors in it, so it makes it watchable. Dustin says, I have a feeling the stuff with Roman will take place before 3, and we see a flashback of what happened to Stu and Roman setting up Stu with money, etc., before Roman dies in 3. Stu's been waiting. JT says the TV falling on the kid's head at the end of Scream 6 I thought was a sign of Stu. Byron, what's going on, buddy? Hope you're well, man. I know you went through that stuff not too long ago that you messaged me about. You're always welcome here, dude. Feel free to share your thoughts on anything. I'm sorry that other people didn't treat you with the respect you deserve, man. I can't say I'm surprised, though. He says it would be something if a Ghostface mentor of Stu, paramedic or someone, faked his death and got him out of there. That would make sense, since Sydney or anyone else never hinted to him. I would think Sydney just would have moved on with her life. It has happened so many fucking times since then that Stu would have just been, a notch on the belt. It could go so many different ways, really, at the end of the day. And I love Johnny's idea of going meta, like really going meta and doing stab, where, Nev is Nev playing Sydney or something like that. But I think the odds of that are minuscule at best, and it's unfortunate because for me,
I mean that as the movie sort of like 3.
Yeah,
like where you had the stab movie filming in the background of the story, which was
ultimately Nev was playing Sydney, sort of thing, right? So,
well, Nev was Sydney, right? That was the point.
Yeah, no, but I would want to go even further. Like I
don't think we'd go full meta. I'd be on board. As interesting as that would be, I think that's a step too far. Yeah. I think you'd almost have to make a stab movie at that point instead of Scream.
I'll say this, nothing's out about the story at this point. Somebody might have their hands on it, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But what was once described as a movie about Sydney and her family, not in Woodsboro, is quickly turning into a bit of a Scream all-star movie, if you will. And I kind of can't help but wonder, will Liev Schreiber make a reappearance in this movie? He might be harder to get to sign on the dotted line, but give me him or Timothy Olyphant, and I'm in. Timothy Olyphant also might not be an easy get to sign on the dotted line, no. So we'll have to wait and see. The question is, where do all of you think this Scream 7 development is going? I'll give them this. They have everybody scratching their heads wondering what is next. I I do feel a little bad though for the people that are 100% convinced Stu's still alive. If they do go the route of he's not, he's just, you know, a vision or something like that. Like, oh my God, why am I forgetting the character's name? Skeet's character. Billy Loomis. Wow, of all characters to forget, Billy Loomis. And remember that last name because we're going to be talking about it momentarily. But yes, share your thoughts down below. We would love to hear what all of you have to say. Which brings us to a little something I want to get off my chest. On social media today, filming of the alternate ending to Halloween Ends leaked. You know, that alternate ending we discussed at length, one of multiple, might I add, and we were told by content creators way bigger than us that we were full of shit and we should stop lying in our mom's basements. Well, I haven't lived with my mother in like over 15 years. So, I don't know what to say to that other than sort of, you know, tip the hat there and go, just because someone has a super big channel doesn't mean they know what they're talking about.
The words "suck it, bitch" come to mind.
Yeah, you know what? I'll take the gloves off. Fuck them. Fuck the guys that treated Byron with disrespect. You know who you are. You sacks of shit that used to come on here. That's how I feel about you now. To the people that said we were full of shit, well, guess what? We're not. We weren't. Doesn't mean we had everything right. And there are other channels, not just us, that had Halloween End shit right. 100%. And there's going to be people that have, honestly, there's probably going to be channels that have more information than we do on the Halloween TV series simply because Blumhouse is not involved. That hurts us in terms of being able to get certain information. If the thing ever fucking happens at this point. But yeah, no, it was nice to see that come out and be like, yeah, fuck you. You said there was only one ending to Halloween Ends. They filmed more than one ending, motherfucker. Anyways, and that's not a toot your horn sort of thing, but yeah.
It's a little too.
No, it's just, you know, this channel got shredded by fucking, you know,
Bitches and hoes.
Yeah, you know, it's by people that just wanted to clout and shit on us, and maybe they didn't like the way I expressed myself or handled things. And I'm not perfect. I'm an asshole. I can admit it. I just wish other people could too. Not that I'm an asshole. They're already saying that, but that they are an asshole.
I was gonna say, I agree.
But yeah, it was nice to see that, and I hope as time goes, we see more stuff like that peeks into the behind the scenes of the Blumhouse trilogy, because the simple fact is there's a lot about that trilogy that never came out publicly, a lot of scenes, a lot of stuff that they just have not revealed. And yeah, toot, I'll do it for you. Thanks, JT. But yeah, no, I'm happy with that. Happy it finally came out, and we'll see what else comes to light now that has. Let's shift gears here. I want to talk about this. And, you know, at one point in time, I thought I would only be excited for this simply because I have a little boy who is obsessed with dinosaurs. But Jurassic World Rebirth, I don't like the title, especially when you get into, you know, what the movie is about. But Jurassic World Rebirth is going to hit theaters July 2nd. I still think there's a chance they move that up to push a little further away from Fantastic Four and Superman. But we had a significant amount of information come to light about Jurassic World Rebirth, including some photos from the movie today. My little guy's a massive dinosaur fan, obsession. He's 5. He knows way more about dinosaurs than I do. But that aside, I was not a fan of the last 3 movies. I know there was people. I didn't mind Jurassic World. That was nostalgia filled. Fallen Kingdom was terrible and Dominion was worse, and that's too bad because Sam Neill was involved and Jeff Goldblum was involved, and it's cool to see those characters back together. But at the end of the day, it reminded me of the Rise of Skywalker in places. It's a clunky movie, wasn't very good, felt like it was trying to be Mission Impossible. My Jurassic fandom goes back to the first two movies. I'm not a big fan of the third one. As far as I know, a lot of people aren't. But those first two movies, I dig a lot. And we're going back to that, despite keeping the Jurassic World title. The movie, let's see if I can find the premise here, if it's in this article. Okay, here we go. The story follows members of a recovery team led by Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey, as they venture to an island near the equator that was once the home to the first Jurassic Park research lab. The squad is trying to retrieve genetic material that could lead to a medical breakthrough for humanity. But 3 decades later, the mistakes made at the ruined facility have not gone away. They've endured and only grown bigger. These are the dinosaurs that didn't work for Hammond's original park. There's some mutations in there, Marshall says. They're all based on real dinosaur research, but they look a little bit different. So in a way, we are going back to events prior to even the first Jurassic Park. Think of the shaving cream can with Newman. I can't remember his fucking name in the movie. I think of him as Newman from Seinfeld. And Sam Jackson's character and John Hammond. And I wish, we had guys like Zach and Mondo and Ben on tonight because they could dive into this further. But I love the idea that they were fucking around with shit, trying to get it right prior to the first Jurassic Park. Because guess what? It wouldn't have been just like, okay, well, we discovered the ability to do this and we nailed it on shot one. Love the idea that they didn't nail it the first time around. And there are these, island of misfit toys, if you will, that are out there. And I don't know about you guys, but the premise of this has me hooked. I'm sold. And in terms of the tone, Gareth Edwards already came out and said, not everyone's going to live. Big knock on the Jurassic World movies. All your feature characters basically live in every single movie. No one dies. That is not happening this time around. As much as kids love Blue and Beta and stuff like that, there might be reference to those dinosaurs and Owen and Claire and all that. But this movie is not about that. This has gone back to its roots. Randy, I'm going to go to you first. I don't know if you're a Jurassic fan or not. We've never talked about it. But for me, them going back this far, and even though it takes place 5 years after Dominion, but them going back and doing a story about this, I'm sold on it. And also, by the way, this is a big one. A sequence that was cut out of the original Jurassic Park, you could play it on the Sega Genesis game, has been re-added into this movie. They've redone it. So there's nostalgia there too. I'm hooked. Like, my hype for this movie has gone way up. Randy, your thoughts?
So if there's anybody who knows anything about main characters dying and not surviving, it's definitely Gareth Edwards for obvious reasons. But honestly, this is a really cool premise. It sounds like we're gonna get a good old fashioned monster movie. You know what I mean? It's not just dinosaurs we're talking about here. They're talking about mutations. So how cool are some of these mutations going to look? Because if you think about it, the different types of, especially with the different animals they use to kind of try to fill in the gene sequences for to create them in the first movie, it's going to be just a mishmash of craziness that I'm all for. Especially some real dinosaur violence. That's always a good thing, especially done right. I mean, I'm huge with that in this fantasy as well. When you think about some of whether it's dragons or just Kong and Godzilla, if it's done right, it's going to be amazing. And it sounds like that's what we're going to get here. And I'm all for it. I'm all for just going for it. I did enjoy the first two movies. Like the originals. 3, and I haven't seen Dominion. that movie came out a little bit after, not too long after my mom passed. So that was one of her favorite franchises. So that's been a hard one for me to go and even watch just because of that. I'm sure I'll watch it at some point, but ultimately, if done right, if we get that right feel, and it sounds like that's what they're shooting for, just that OG Jurassic Park feel where it's hard to not be in awe but also terrified at the same time. This is exciting. This is something I think, as Jurassic Park fans, whether you've read the books or not, whether you've seen all the movies or not, this is something we need. Something that's kind of wash that bad taste out of our mouths of Dominion, of really kind of like the whole Jurassic World trilogy, even though the first one wasn't bad. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, the first one was definitely nostalgia filled. They were very toned down to be kid friendly. Those ones, and that's one thing I am a little worried for my little guy is he is starting to get into the originals a little bit more. He's watched them all, but obviously when you're 5 and you see Blue, then you're gonna get hooked to Blue and Owen and all that. But I'm thrilled with the approach. I'm not shocked though that they're taking a deep dive like this and going back to the original, considering it's the original writer that is doing this movie. So I appreciate what they're doing there. Kieran was in here. He said, "What? No camouflage missile shooting Gotosaurus shit movie." But if Leprechaun was in it, he would love it. Johnny, how do you feel about this, man?
Well, I'm excited, which is more than I can say for Dominion. I liked Worlds, and even Fallen Kingdom wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't particularly great, but it was okay. Kind of like the original Jurassic Park movies. They progressively got worse, and this trilogy was the same way. But I think the premise of this works for me on a host of levels.
The most recent Star Wars trilogy.
That's an entirely different kettle of fish. But this one works for me on a host of different levels because it allows you to almost, mea culpa on the science of it, because our knowledge even of dinosaurs, which, in the early 90s, we thought was, well, there's really nothing left to learn here, has come so far in 30 years that, we know things now that we couldn't have imagined 30. I mean, all of us grew up thinking that raptors were the raptors we saw in Jurassic Park, because that's the way it was. It was scientific fact, until all of a sudden science realized, no, they were probably more like turkeys. Just feral, violent, I'm going to chop your face off turkeys. It's like, hold on, what? No, that ain't, you're screwing with my head here. But this allows you to sort of mea culpa some of that science, where you can be like, yes, we know that, they mixed the DNA, but they wouldn't have made mistakes like that, genetically. And this allows that to sort of play better with the, yeah, Hammond just didn't like it. Giant turkeys didn't play, but these man-eating velociraptors, they play. They look terrifying and they scare the crap out of you. And that's what he wanted. He wanted the little dinosaur that would scare the crap out of you. And that's what he got. So it makes sense scientifically to play with that, and that these mutations can be more authentic to nature and the things we've learned in the last 30 years, that it allows it to play better scientifically, so that, yeah, you kind of have to still suspend your disbelief in the, cloning aspect of it, because even 30 years later, that's still not something we can do. Not to the level at which they did there. But our actual knowledge base of dinosaurs has come so far in 30 years that, this gives them a chance to make it more real while still acknowledging the inaccuracies of the earlier movies, which I love the idea of that. And I love the idea of being, more dark. The only thing that stretches my imagination, which it's hard for me to say is the idea that there's this genetic testing that could save a medical breakthrough for humanity, when in reality we know that what is it? The company, Diogene.
Oh, it got renamed in the newer ones. I don't know what it is in the old ones.
But like it stretches my belief a little bit further that this knowledge base would be exclusively on, Isla Nublar or Solar, whichever Isla they're on for this particular movie.
Neither. It's a completely different.
No, but I mean, the island chain, right, is sort of where we're living. Just a different one of the islands, which we sort of got with Jurassic Park 3 was a different island, and
which is another reason why I don't think you're gonna see any dinosaurs from previous movies. Is this is a completely different location that was off the map where they were doing their testing.
Which makes perfect sense to me. So like the only thing that stretches my knowledge base is that this was still a company headquartered in the continental United States. Like, unless you're going to somehow make this a genetic breakthrough that was made at the very end as they were evacuating from something else crazy that had happened, which I suppose in theory you could do that, and have the scientists who made that discovery, die in whatever tragic event occurred on the island that shut it down completely in the events of Jurassic Park. Okay, you can do that, and I suppose you can make it work. Just based on premise, that's the only thing that stretches my credulity in this ramp-up phase. Like, it's a little bit of a stretch for me that this knowledge would be exclusively there, when there still would have been communication with the home base. There still would have been, other scientists working on it. That part stretches me just a little, but not far enough to take me out of it, and not far enough that it's not salvageable from within the story. So, as long as they handle that correctly, and it's not just a, well, they just forgot it. Like, no, that's not how brains work. If the scientist is still alive, he still knows how to do it. So that's, there are issues, but like I said, they're salvageable issues. They're issues that they can solve very easily, especially if you get like your opening 5 minutes is the ending of the island. My assumption would be sort of simultaneous to the events of Jurassic Park 1. This plays out on that other island as well, because, the storm, all those things that happened to the main park would have happened elsewhere in sort of that island chain, right? So it makes sense that an event like that would have occurred on this island. Now, obviously, Dennis Nedry was the name of Newman's character that you've forgotten. But, obviously you don't have the Dennis Nedry factor on this other facility unless all of their computer network is intertwined together, which, granted, would be ahead of the time scientifically, but, it's Jurassic Park, you're cloning dinosaurs. We can suspend a little bit of that science and, assume that the networks are all linked together at that point in history, that, him injecting the virus into Jurassic Park would affect the research facility on whatever other island this is. InGen. Thank you, Dustin.
InGen, yep.
That, it makes sense that if all of this is happening simultaneously, they've just discovered this at the time of the storm, and, the scientists die in the process of trying to escape this research island, and the research is lost on the island because they're dead and the research is still there, then yes, you have a reason to go back, especially if you don't know about that research until, somehow in the future you learn about it at present time. It's extremely plausible, makes perfect sense, and if that's the way the story plays out, all the better, because it answers all of those sort of, well, why questions that I have, that I'm sure other people will have, in a satisfying way to both storytelling perspective, making this event realistic in the world, and, again, one of those nostalgia, not at the sake of originality, arguments I made earlier when talking about Scream. You get the nostalgia of, tying back in the events of Jurassic Park 1 to this event, which works, from the nostalgia factor and the originality factor, because you get all those things that are now new and original, and these new dinosaurs, whatever they are. There's a lot of potential here. Just as equally, there's a lot of potential that this is just another in a long line of Jurassic Park movies that are meh. You know, like that's the unfortunate thing about the Jurassic Park movies as a whole. They're either amazing and we love them, or they're okay, they exist. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's, you know what? Thanks. I've seen it once. I'd rather not watch it again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this one falls. I think it has a ton of potential, though.
Mhm.
To me, it's leaning more in line with likely, and I'm not talking box office success, because obviously the success of the most recent 3 movies financially was there.
Mhm.
I'm talking just, is it a good movie and a good story that hasn't been toned down, isn't kiddie? And I think so far it's leaning that way, which I think is good. You know, it has me excited. Let's take a look at a few of these. Actually, the one thing I did want to mention, since you were kind of, just tack this on to your thoughts here. I'd be curious to see how far they're willing to go with this. Are we going to have the movie kick off in like 1980 or something with a 13-year younger John Hammond from the first movie, and we see him and scientists effing around, and maybe you see some of the dinosaurs we're going to see in the movie, getting hatched, just as like a prologue sort of thing, and then we move on to something else.
I think we're more likely to get, like I said, the events of Jurassic Park having it, kind of like the game, right? The Telltale game, the Telltale Jurassic Park game.
Yeah.
Only that was on, on Island Nublar at the same time. But I think that's how it's more likely to play out. It'll be those events of the original Jurassic Park movie playing out at the research facility on the other island, which allows you to not have Hammond, because I don't think he's really someone you can. I mean, I guess you can effectively recast him, but I don't. It doesn't make much sense to do that for just
significantly younger. You can do that. Like, who knows when he started fucking around with all this shit, right? Like, first movie came out, what, 92, I think, 92 or 93.
Yeah.
It's like, and if that's what year was in the movie, I assume it is. It's not like, oh, well, we just started this 3 years ago, sort of thing. That's never.
I want to say he gave us a timeline in one of the later movies. So was it?
I can't remember. It might be in the novel, the original novel. But
yeah,
you'd
the
have
Michael Crichton novel.
Yeah.
No, I want to say like in the movie. Which movie was it? He was
on
his deathbed.
Goldblum.
Yeah, I think in that one he mentioned the timeline for when he started in Gen. But
the island is just full of Nedries. You didn't say the magic word.
I think that would be great, having the Nedry computer virus show up in the in this research facility. I'd love that.
That's a nostalgic throwback. But I feel like you could easily get like BD Wong to come back almost like in I wouldn't say a cameo, but kind of like a flashback. Just de-age him a little bit.
In one of the World movies?
I think he was in them. Yeah. But like, since he was the lead scientist, bring him back like in a flashback scene, but call it like Site Zero, like the initial research facility where they would transport the dinosaurs from there to the actual Jurassic Park. So it's like there's a lot of potential here. I don't think Gareth Edwards would have signed on to direct if it wasn't a good story. And I think if he didn't like the screenplay or anything like that, or didn't help make tweaks like he's done before, I don't think he would have been like, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, we saw what he did with Rogue One, and we can't complain about that. So
I'm always careful how much credit I give Gareth Edwards for Rogue One. He's done some stuff since then, and obviously his fingerprints are on it. But it's important to remember that he got benched during that, and Tony Gilroy, who's doing Andor, came in and cleaned up a lot of things there and quite literally took over the project. A lot of people like to spin it as if they worked hand in hand. No, it's pretty well known that Tony Gilroy came in and became the boss there because Kathleen Kennedy and company didn't like the direction Gareth was going. So that being said, his fingerprints are still somewhere on it, and I like the guy. I've heard him talk a ton, and he's had success. And I'm happy it's him doing this movie. Dustin says, Excited for that Jurassic Park game that basically takes place right after the first movie. Yeah, it's a survival game. Supposed to come out this year. Looks good. Looks really good. Let's take a look at a few photos here, because what a lot of people love with these new Jurassic movies is what dinosaurs are we going to get to see that we haven't seen in a while. Here's what I believe they said to T-Rex, and you see where he's different there is the skin, right? The skin, none of the T-Rexes have looked anything like that. It's almost like it has I think it's a Carnotaurus. I wish my 5-year-old was awake. He could tell me. Type skin on it.
Bigger, broader, rounder head.
That too, maybe. Yeah.
Carno has a bigger, broader, rounder head.
I just meant this. The T-Rex.
No, I meant in your comparison. That's what you're trying to think of.
There's Scarlett Johansson. Mahershala Ali. And then, does anyone know what this is?
Is that looks like a Mosasaurus or what? I think that's
no, based on the curvature of the jaw, that's a Spino.
It sure is,
coming
but
out of the water.
Check this out.
Dinosaurs are water.
Yep. Not one Spinosaurus, not two Spinosaurus, but 3 Spinosauruses and a Mosasaurus. My kid is going to go over the moon. He hasn't seen this picture yet. Hopefully it's in the trailer. People have wanted a Spinosaurus back in a Jurassic movie since the 3rd one. Well, guess what? You're getting 3. 3 with a Mosasaurus. That I fucking dig this. This is cool. I'm a pro Spinosaurus guy. So my little guy is a stuffed animal Spinosaurus. He calls Spencer. He got at a Jurassic convention, not convention, but just like a dinosaur exhibit thing that they do up here a few years back, and it's his bedtime stuffy. And he's always wanted to see another Spinosaurus other than in 3, and now he's going to get 3 in this one movie. So maybe more. Who knows? But I think that's pretty awesome. I'm hyped about that. It's funny that Randy mentioned the Mosasaurus, and that was going to be in the next picture. So, got a feel for that boat. That's not very protected. So,
they're screwed.
Yeah, you probably screwed with one of them. Extra screwed with 3 of them. Dustin says Spino. Yeah, absolutely. Triplets.
Just better hope they're properly fed.
Well, I imagine there's no one maintaining that island anymore. So,
well, I mean, nature would maintain it, right?
And I believe that's it. Trailer is out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I know I'm looking forward to it. It's a lot of positivity coming from this, and I still hope that it's not too gruesome, because obviously their intention is to make it a little scarier. But I still think it needs to be a movie that's safe enough for kids to go to and see, because there's going to be a bunch of merch and toys and stuff like that. And, well, you need to get kids' asses in seats for that. So, looking forward to it. Let's take a little bit of a break here. Let's take a minute. Allow me to catch my breath, and we will get right back to it. You gonna live?
Oh, I was not expecting a meme like that to crack me. But brother did it. Oh.
And we're back. At least two of us. Randy will be rejoining us here shortly. So to recap, to this point, we have talked Scream 7, the return of Stu and Roman. We discussed Jurassic World Rebirth. We also got into the alternate endings of Halloween Ends a bit, and a nice FU to all those that called us liars a couple of years ago. So, and now we are back talking the Fantastic Four First Steps trailer. We're not going to play it here because we will get demonetized. But just want to, I'm assuming we've all seen it at this point in time. Randy, give me your thoughts on the trailer. Apparently I was muted too. Have I been
There we
muted
go.
that whole time?
No, you haven't.
You weren't to us, but I don't know about the audience.
Interesting.
Yeah, you had to unmute
Did you
us.
guys hear the
unfortunately.
music playing?
Yeah.
Interesting. It just showed me the mute. Let us know if you heard anything over the last few minutes. But here we are talking Fantastic Four trailer. Randy, give me your thoughts.
I enjoyed it. I feel like the cast looks great. I like how we got a slight glimpse of the big bad for the movie, even if we don't get to see him in all his glory. Having a brief glimpse of Galactus was really cool as hell. And given the size reference they did with pairing him up against Statue of Liberty was really cool. I liked the whole almost, I would say, futuristic 60s look that they were going for here, because that was I liked it. I liked it a lot. Also, just it feels different than some of the other trailers we've seen for the other Fantastic Four movies. Like, they really took their time and are really being serious about this film. And I like that. I like the idea that we're going to go down that road where it's not going to be full of cheese. It's about time we got a proper Fantastic Four movie.
Johnny, your thoughts on the trailer?
I loved everything about it. I loved the mystery. Specifically, John Malkovich, sir, who are you? I really need to know who you are now, immediately, today, right this second, because that's bugging the hell out of me, and I love it for that. I love Galactus. Like I said to a friend of mine, who was the first person to send me a link to the trailer at an ungodly hour this morning when it first launched. Galactus, Chef's Kiss. Galactus is Galactus, exactly as I would imagine him from the comics on the big screen. I love it. They didn't show a Silver Surfer, which I think was a conscious decision because of sort of the casting involved in that character. Has taken a lot of flack from certain portions of the audience, but they're the ones who are going to complain about anything anyway, so they can, sit in a corner and cry for all I care. but everything about it, I loved it. You know, I love the interactions with Ben and you know, Robbie the robot here, and you know, Sue and Johnny. All of that stuff was great. I loved it. I loved the complete lack of anything relating to Doom. I loved that. I love not mentioning him at all, which I think is a great decision because, spoiler alert, it's not Robert Downey Jr. I don't understand people. I'm scrolling today and I literally see an IGN like people reacting to where's Robert Downey Jr. Not in the fucking movie.
I don't think Doom's going to be in the movie either. I mean,
Not at all. I think, and this is my honest opinion, I genuinely think there's going to be one of the tags is going to be Doom in Latveria just wearing the mask. Like just Doom in Latveria sitting at a computer or something, tapping his fingers, looking at a screen, and you sort of see him in silhouette from behind. So you can have that ambiguity of, is that Downey? Is that Doom from this universe? Like that's the thing. We don't even know what universe this is. You know, we don't know if this is 616. We don't know if this is another universe. You know, we don't know that. We assume, my assumption is that this is 616. This is Prime Earth. This is the sacred timeline because it makes the most sense. You know, I don't think you're going to introduce a Fantastic Four at this degree as new interaction of them just to be like, yeah, they're actually on another Earth, but you're going to shoehorn them because otherwise I don't think they're part of the plan going forward, which I think this Fantastic Four is. So I'm fairly certain this is the Prime timeline. This is the sacred timeline. And we'll see that sort of play out over the course. And some people will be like, well, how come people didn't freak out? You know, like what Galactus showed up. Like, if there's one thing we've learned in comic book movies is that when you go a certain period without anything happen, people downplay its existence. You know, like they forget about it. As you move generationally forward, it's like, oh, that's a thing that happened. But it wasn't a big deal, you know, because it never happened again. But I think that's a bit closer to how it's going to play out. I'm excited for it. You know, I'm very excited for it. I've been excited for this for a very long time. The castings, everybody looked good. I liked how sort of little I was afraid that the first trailer was going to be like 90% Pedro. You know, just to play off his popularity in society today. And it's not. He is actually, I would dare say, the least featured member of the Fantastic Four in this entire trailer. And I love that. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited for where the story goes. I love the Fantastic Four. I always have. You know, they are, you know, I grew up on the Fantastic Four. You know, they were the ones that had the cartoons, and they were the ones that were part of the world that we grew up in as the, you know, the touchstones, the Paramounts. They're the first family of Marvel for a reason. You know, they are the bedrock that Marvel is built upon. And, you know, unfortunately, Marvel almost dying in the late 90s meant that, you know, they basically had to sell them for parts to survive, you know, and thankfully the company that bought those rights is now dead, which I would like to happen to Sony so that they can get back the entirety of the Marvel catalog. But I digress. That's a different issue altogether. But I love having them back. I love having them be a part of this now. And they're the characters I love. I love Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm is, of all of these sort of strength characters in comics, Ben Grimm is my favorite. He always has been. Because there's just something about him, you know, that I love so much about Ben Grimm. And you see that in this trailer. You know, I love the Fantastic Four. They're some of my favorite characters in comics. I'm excited for this because it looks fun, which is something I can't say about a Fantastic Four movie in my lifetime. You know, I liked the first one, the 2002 one, you know, with Ian Gruffold and Jessica Alba and Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis. I liked that. Even Julian McMahon as Doom. I liked that. Second movie, I liked Rise of Silver Surfer. You know, comparatively, compared to the crap that was Josh Trank did in 2014 or whatever, you know, like that's
poor Josh Trank. How's that Boba Fett movie going?
Like I can't even with that movie. That was, you know, I would rather watch the 1996 Fantastic movie, which if you've ever seen pictures from, no, it's a piece of crap. I would rather watch that than the Josh Trank movie.
I actually fell asleep watching
1996 movie.
Like, yuck, you know. But I'm excited for this Fantastic. I love the ties to the future. You know, I love that the Baxter Building is Avengers Tower. You know, that was one of those big rumors, right? What happens to Avengers Tower post, you know, Tony dying? Like the big rumor was, well, the Avengers are going to buy it, or it's going to be Oscorp, or it's going to be something. But now here we find out that no, it actually was the Baxter Building first, and then it was Avengers Tower, and I love that. You know, assuming again that this is the prime timeline, that this is the same timeline.
I just saw the meme you said. My phone was off, and I don't have Facebook on the computer. So
yeah, it broke me. But you know, like it just, I love all these little ties to the future. How we're going to end up putting the Fantastic Four on ice is going to be fun. I'm excited to see how they do it. I think I have an idea-ish of how that's going to play out. I am still like, there's still a part of me that's like, I think we're going to have like I think we're either going to get a Howard Stark cameo in this movie, or we're going to see Hank Pym. I think we're going to get one of them in this. I don't know which one, maybe even both, you know, maybe some sort of pre-Illuminati, you know, we'll show up and we'll see Howard and Hank and Reed, you know, come together to deal with the threat that is Galactus. I'd love that personally. I think that would be amazing. But, you know, I think we're going to end up with them sort of trapped in a, whether it's like the Cosmic Cube or, you know, something of that sort. They're going to end up trapped in something like that. And that's why they're, you know, trapped in time, as it were. I think that's why the story's going to play out, and they're going to be forgotten from history because they did this one thing and then they were gone.
This is why people should tune into this show. Is rarely do you get three people who are all in agreement. Well, we got two people that are in agreement, and allow me to put on my Palpatine robe and come in here and shit on some of what Johnny just said. I don't believe this is 616. I believe this will be a different world. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be involved in the next two movies, the two Avengers movies, though, just so we're clear. Anyone I've seen the if it's not 616, then they won't be involved. I'm like, just like, what?
Explain Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, then, dingbat.
He's literally going to be playing a fucking Tony Stark variant who is fucking Victor Von Doom.
No, he's just Dr. Doom. He's still Tony Stark.
And like, well, as far as I know, he's going to be Victor Von Doom.
He's assuming they stick to the comics. There is an Earth. I don't think he's going to be Victor. I think he'll still be Tony.
I just heard it as with man, which one of the Russos was it? I don't remember, but he claims it's Victor Von Doom.
Yeah, I think you're falling for the story.
Well, I think he will be. I think that's what he'll. I don't think he will be the Victor Von Doom, so we're clear. But I think he will go by Victor Von Doom as an adopted name, and he's in fact actually Tony Stark. That's where I think this is going. The trailer, you know, it's fine. It looks okay. I didn't mind those.
It looks okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It looks okay. I don't think it looks amazing. You know what other trailer I thought looked like? This looks okay. Superman looked like shit. I'm just going to be honest. I fucking think Superman is set up to fail massively.
A Superman trailer where the most interesting character is a dog is a failure of epic proportions.
100%. I think it looks like a joke. And I think James Gunn has bit off way more than he can chew. And I think he's come across like a pompous ass on social media. And, you know, he sounds more like a dictator these days, not to get all political on people. I've already forgotten the name of the movies. Help me out here. The movies did for Marvel. I'm just drawing a complete blank.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
I haven't seen the third one. Only seen the first two. And I really liked the first two movies. I liked the Guardians and the Avengers movies too. I thought they were great. But the way he has gone about this DC shit, the way that he has undermined Matt Reeves and they've gotten into it, I'm sorry, I don't support the James Gunn universe. I will eat crow. Doesn't mean I'm not going to see it. If it's good, I will be the first guy to eat crow and say, you know what? I was wrong. And I can admit that. I thought the Fantastic Four trailer looked okay. I'm not a big Fantastic Four guy, so like, I was never going to be like, oh my god, this blew my mind. My problem's the guy on screen here. The CG looks like shit. The movie's not out yet though, and we've seen this a ton in trailers where you go, oh, the CG is not quite up to snuff. And when's this out? July? So like they have half a year to improve on any CG with the Thing or anyone else. It looks really bad in places here.
It's only a teaser.
And hey, some movies do terrible. We just watched Dumbo today, the live action version with our little girl. She loved it, but the CG in that movie's fucking awful. And the CG in a lot of movies lately have been fucking awful because typical Disney have been copping out on the budget at times, and it's a rush job. And make no mistake, this movie is a rush job. If you don't think this movie went from script to screen to theater super quick, you're out of your fucking mind. I hope this movie is successful because, in my opinion, to set up the 2 Avengers movies, you need this movie to be successful with the role that they're likely to play in at least one of the 2 movies, if not both. But yeah, I just the Thing CGI really bothered me. I thought it was really bad. I didn't think it was anywhere close to finished, and hopefully it looks a lot better on the big screen. That aside, I thought it looked okay. I think that they hit the 60s feel to it. I thought it looked okay. I'm intrigued. I'll probably go see it. Superman, on the other hand, I think looks like dog shit. So, I want this to be for Fantastic Four fans, like diehard fans. I want this to be their movie. I want them to go see this and to fist pump when they walk out, to be super hyped about more. They deserve that. That's what I want for them. Just because I might not like something doesn't mean that I want someone else's favorite thing to be a failure, like fucking tribalism and shit. That's not me at all. Again, the Thing I think looks like shit. I think the robot there looks a little like Screech's robot from Saved by the Bell. And the casting in this is fantastic, as Johnny said. There's a shot in New York. There's the car, John Malkovich. Gotta love me some John. I hope it's good. They need it to be good. My only gripe's the Thing. I thought the Thing looked fucking horrible. Other than that, it's a well put together little teaser that doesn't give away too much. I didn't see who was cast as Silver Surfer, by the way. Who'd they cast?
It is. Oh God, what is their name? Hold on, let me pull it up so I don't get the name incorrect. Julia Garner. I'm sure you can figure out why the.
Oh yeah, she's a female, and people are gonna fucking hate that. Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying I agree with it at all. I'm all for switching things up. I've watched enough of my kids' TV shows to see, Doc Ock as a woman in the Spidey and Kids show, and that new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man that just came out, which I actually really liked the first 2 episodes. They switch. They switched. Harry and Norman are African American. That's fine. But someone else had like a Doc Connors. That's it. Doc Connors is a female in that one. That stuff doesn't bother me. That's okay. I'm fine with that. But we'll see what happens at the end. I want this movie to be good. Again, I don't want anyone to think me being critical over CGI is me bashing it. I think there's a really good chance this is a really good movie. I'm a little worried about the timeline though. Like I just am. It's very quick from pre-production to it being released, and I hope that they've given themselves enough time to do it properly. All righty, let's continue to move on.
I think part of the issue you have with the Thing is they base it off of Jack Kirby's original drawings. So
I've seen the drawings. They're not. I was watching a whole thing on it today. it's not close. The CGI is terrible in here. I got to call a spade, and it's just like, where's the one shot? I'm trying to. Like, it's just very bad. There's no other way around it for 2025 standards. And again, though, there's 6 months if they've got to cut.
You know they're going to tweak it.
Yeah, no, for sure. This happens. Go watch trailers to so many other movies where you go, oh, the CGI is not great in this, right? Same thing for Jurassic World Rebirth, though. You know, we haven't seen a trailer yet, but the time it went from writing to when it's being released, very quick given today's industry standards. So, a little concern there too. You know, I want this movie to be good, and I hope it is, and I see no reason why it wouldn't be. I am curious to see if it'll be 616, like Johnny says. Wouldn't be shocked though if it's a different universe, but that doesn't rule out them being in. I don't get people going, well, then they're out of the Avengers. Like, what? Makes no sense to me. But
you literally have an entire movie based on the premise of taking from one Earth to put on another Earth.
Yeah.
Like, have you watched Deadpool and Wolverine?
Mm-hmm.
Also, this is the multiverse saga, so it's not like we've seen 3 different Spider-Men. Okay, it's gonna happen. Everybody's gonna get together.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, people will bitch about anything. I'm bitching about the CGI in this, but I'm admitting, hey, half a year, it's probably going to get a lot better.
Can I point out the weird Deadpool and Wolverine thing that is just now bugging me that I never realized bugged me until right this moment?
What's that?
There are 2 Wolverines on that Earth now.
Yeah, you're right. There are.
No, dead. He's dead.
Not at the point of the end of the movie.
Yeah. Dead.
No.
Yeah.
The end of the movie wasn't after Logan.
Yes, it was.
Actually, that could be Logan's universe.
Well, then why are there still X-Men? Negasonic Teenage Warhead is still alive. Juggernaut is still not Juggernaut. Sorry, Colossus is still alive.
Okay.
At the time of Logan, there was just Logan and Professor X.
I'm confused.
I'm sure at some point they may choose to explain it. They may not choose to explain it. They may have just used, the TVA.
It's just meant to annoy people like me who actually think about it for a second and realize, wait a minute, hold on.
Yep, they did it just for you.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm sure they'll probably rectify that in the Avengers movie, by taking Deadpool and Wolverine out of that Earth and putting them into, the sacred timeline.
Probably.
The proper sacred timeline.
Hugh Jackman's going to need a big check, but I'm sure they'll give it to him. I don't think he's done yet. I don't think he'll be the Wolverine going forward, but he's going to have a role to play in one of these 2 movies. Same with Ryan Reynolds.
Well, that was one thing he always wanted, was to actually be on the screen with the Avengers. That was like one of his big dreams as Wolverine.
Well,
I think he's going to get to live it. I do.
They'll sell him on the team up easier than I think this one was, which is weird to think because him and Ryan just do have that amazingly symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think it's an easier sell for him to come back for an Avengers movie where he's going to get a easily
one of those 8-figure paychecks that starts at 5. He's probably like, yeah, I'll do it.
He's going to take an 8-figure paycheck, and at the end of the day, his workload is going to be relatively small comparatively. Yeah, he'll be back for that.
Robert Downey Jr. almost got 9 figures to return for these 2 movies. So
that's not surprising because he's going to be the villain,
Still has a lot of money. My God. You talk about wanting to change spending habits in Hollywood. Well, maybe $95 million for 2 movies plus access to a private jet and all those other goodies he got. Might have been a bit much, but and reek of desperation a little bit, but yeah.
As long as they make the money they expect to, which I don't see how it doesn't. It's an Avengers movie. I think that'll be just fine for them.
Yeah, I don't think it'll make what the Infinity War Endgame made. I think we're in a time where those numbers are very hard to achieve anymore. But it's going to be a massive hit. And, you know, Godspeed to the other movies that got to compete against it. Shift gears here.
Nobody's going to compete against it. They're not going to be stupid.
Are you kidding me? They're having their own fucking movie compete against it in the same fucking month.
Yeah, but they can allow that because at the end of the day, the money goes to the same corporate overlord. So they don't care about it.
Still,
They'll compete with it.
I look at that Mando and Grogu date and I go, fucking move it. Move it. Put it in April. Put it in June. Don't release it 2 weeks after fucking Avengers. Like, it's not a great move. Like, it'll make more money than Avengers does in its opening week when Avengers on week 3. But Avengers is still going to be cutting into.
I think that's an assumption that may
easily.
not. I don't know.
Easily. I'll take the. What do you want to bet right now? Let's do it. Let's do this
Nothing,
bet on air.
I,
Right
I
now.
don't think
There's
it's as
no movie on planet Earth in week 3 ever that will gross more than a new Star Wars movie on opening weekend, period. Especially one that has Grogu in it. I wish they'd change that fucking title. I have nightmares over that title. It's
Since day one, man. Since day one.
I'm ready. Give me Gosling. Anyways, let's pull this up here. Gonna go through this really quickly. Not much Star Wars this week. We're gonna. I don't want to even say we're getting to trivia next week. It just depends how the week goes. But the writer, what's the fella's name here? Because I don't want to get it wrong. Star Wars New Jedi Order recently enlisted the writer George Nolfi. Johnny was mentioning what he did last week. He's done. Born Ultimatum, I believe, and there was another one.
12.
Ocean's 12. Yep,
One of the Ocean's movies.
Both good movies. You know, they're not insanely great or anything, but they're solid flicks. He dove into a little bit about the approach he wants to take, and it's not talking about today per se, but hang on, did I miss part of the quote here? I don't want to. No, okay. He's talking about George Lucas's philosophy. It's not talking about today per se, but there's the empire, Nazism / Roman Empire, the democracy of the Roman Empire collapsing and becoming an empire, and the perennial story of human beings organizing themselves against chaos, and then tools that help human societies tamp down on chaos become oppression. So that is at the very core to what I think George Lucas was trying to discuss. And one of the wonderful things about science fiction and Star Wars, which is more almost science fantasy or space opera, is that you can raise the deepest issues without feeling like a philosophy class or a political science class or something I read in a newspaper today. It can be about real things, deep things. It basically goes on to say that, you know, that's the approach he's taking. He's looking at the first 6 movies as a building ground as opposed to the last 3 movies. And I appreciate that. And I like what he's saying here. And I like that he's done his research. But let's be honest, fellas. Again, I hate going straight to like the negativity. But let's call a spade. Mando and Grogu is happening. You know, we could definitively say that one's coming out next year. Unless something goes disastrously wrong with Sean Levy's movie and Ryan Gosling. That's about to be announced and is likely already fully cast. And we have that at Star Wars Celebration, and it's going to film this year. It's not like we're planning this and we're going to film it in a year and a half. They're ramping up. We're talking set designs already on the way. And then after that, you have the Filoni movie or the Mangold movie, vice versa. So 26, we assume they will not release 2 in a year. So 26, 27, 28, 29. There's our next 4 movies, barring Mangold's movie. I still think there's a chance it may not happen. That means the Rey movie went from first up before Mando and Grogu to potentially coming out in 2029 or 2030. Fellas, I still say there's a greater chance this movie doesn't happen at this point than does, which is unfortunate because I really would have liked to see a new Jedi Order movie with different new Jedi. What are your thoughts on this? You know, cool for the writer, you know, great for George. Thrilled that he's approaching it from the right perspective, in my opinion, but it's way at the back of the line now. One might say, well, he's got time to get it right. They have time to get it right. I might say they could come up with 5 more ideas before they get close to filming this thing that they love more than that, and it just never happens. What are your thoughts at this point on the Rey movie?
Honestly, if it happens, great. If not, I'm not going to be shocked. Would I like to see more with Rey? Of course. I feel like the character had a lot of room for growth, and I would like to see exactly how they grow her out as a character versus what we saw in the sequel trilogy. Obviously, the problem is Disney just hasn't had a great track record with putting out movies for Star Wars recently, and that's what worries me. There's so many projects they announced, so many different people attached, and it's all just been it's all been tossed away, and that makes it really hard to get behind the idea that this is going to happen. Now, there's nothing saying that at Celebration we won't get something other than, obviously we're hoping that Levy's movie will be announced. I do know that they just announced Oscar Isaacs is going to be there. So my guess is, if anything, he could be potentially a part of Levy's movie, as an older Poe Dameron. But beyond that, yeah, if it happens, awesome. If not, just another in the long line of announced projects that had some footing to some degree that either is going to be put on the back burner or completely just done away with altogether. And it's a shame. It's a shame that it's taken this long to even have a definitive date on a new Star Wars film. And for the love of Christ, they need to change Mandalorian and Grogu. They really do. They just need to change the name. That's all I want. Give me something different. That's all I know. But it is what it is at this point. We have to hope as a fan base that they just kind of finally decide to pull the trigger on something.
Can I get an audio check, guys? Am I being heard okay? Is there any bad background feed or anything like that?
No, you're good. I can hear you.
All right. Good. Johnny, your take. Sorry, I want to just touch on one thing Randy said. I hope to God they don't even mention the Rey movie at Celebration. That is the last thing you need to do, is give the fan base false hope for a movie that's not even close to being at the front of your line.
And yet, I think the exact opposite is going to happen. I think that, at this point, I don't want to say it's a pipe dream, because I think inevitably something is going to happen in this vein of Star Wars. Whether that's this, something else altogether, who knows? By the time we get it, it's going to look 10,000 times different than the first project we initially, reported on occurring, which is already, several thousand times different than, where we're at in this process now. So, at this point, I think something's going to happen almost sheerly out of spite, sort of for the process. That I think eventually something will happen here. What that is, I have no idea. Is that this project? I have no idea. I think the interview that George gave and the quotes that George gave were, honestly, I understand them, but I can, look at things properly. I understand Star Wars and what it is, and the social commentary that it's made dating back to the first movie. And I accept it for that. Saying comments like that in 2025 is needlessly pouring gasoline on a fire that is only recently put out. It's especially in the heightened present.
Very arguably not put out yet.
Even then, it's still, embers and hot, and you pour gasoline on it, and it's going to reignite, and it's going to set the forest on fire around you. It's unnecessary to say things like that, because those of us who understand the social commentary of Star Wars are going to see it no matter what. We're going to understand it. We're going to comment on it because we understand that Star Wars has always been that. It's the same as Star Trek. People complain about Star Trek going woke. Like, buddy, Star Trek's been woke since 1966. Star Wars has been woke since 1977. Like, these are not new things being introduced to Star Wars because of present day culture. They've existed in Star Wars the entire time. You just chose not to see it. You chose not to look at it, or you weren't, preconceived to the notions that that's a bad thing. It's not. It's what it is. And it will continue to be that way because at its heart, Star Wars is social commentary. What you make of that is up to you. But it is what it is. And saying that and making the comparisons that he made, to it are just, sir, please stop talking. Like, you do not say schmatzi. It's like saying fire in a theater. You just don't do it unless there's actually fire. Like you don't do it. It's not going to do anything good for you or your project. It's going to shine negativity on it. There are going to be people coming at you from both sides. And that's unfortunate because, there's going to be people on the left saying, no, Star Wars isn't like that. This stuff, this, whatever. Then you're going to get the other side wackos who are like, what's wrong with that? Like, just stop. Let Star Wars be Star Wars and don't talk about that part of George Lucas never talked about that part of Star Wars. Like he let you figure out what he meant by putting it out there. Like the only thing, and this is just me, the only things George ever said about Star Wars was, I loved watching samurai movies. I loved Akira Kurosawa. This is Akira Kurosawa in space. That's Star Wars.
That's true to an extent, but I think you're leaving out, Greek mythology, which he referenced.
Well, no, but I mean that too. Like those sort of things. Like
a hero's journey.
Yes, but I mean those things are, they're par for the course. Your creation as an artist. We all pay homage to things in our art that inspires us. Those are the things that inspire George. And then he took that, brought in his own sort of social commentary to it and let it exist.
I do agree with you that, again, I'm one of the guys that reads this and goes, okay, I like the philosophy, but do you need to talk about this in February of 2025 when you've been on the publicly? He's been announced for a week or two. He's probably been on the job for a couple months. You need to talk about this when your movie is forever away. Like it's unfortunate because really you can't talk about anything and yet you have to talk about something. He doesn't have to talk about this movie yet, but I'm talking even if he was closer. It's like you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, you can't talk about this, you shouldn't talk about that. But when it comes time, you're gonna have to talk about something, and you're gonna piss off one side. Like I do think the best thing people can realize is the Star Wars fan base is divided, and it will never be put back together. There's no chance. Does that mean you have to service both sides? You probably should find a way to do it if you want to capitalize on your franchise. But to look at the bigger picture here, fellas, in terms of Star Wars, before we move on to wrestling, I still think they have another problem. You don't make the $1 billion on a movie that they really desperately want the Star Wars movies to make unless you have casual people that get into it too. It can't just be diehards. People go, it'll be the diehards that made The Force Awakens, what was it, 2.1 or 2.2 billion? Wrong. They helped, but it was the everyday casual going audience member that went, well, I got to see this. I got to see the original three back together. Word of mouth, etc. That was a movie that had legs. It was still doing well in weekend number 3. It wasn't number 1 at the box office or anything, but it carried. It had legs, and you can't say anything without one side attacking you nowadays, and it's unfortunate. But again, to me, he doesn't need to go this hot and heavy 2 weeks after. I don't even want to say officially announced because he hasn't even been officially announced, but he's basically confirming it. Um, it's too early. Like, he's already pissed off people, and you're always going to do it. But with this movie being this far away, it was time to like leave it on the back burner here. Focus on writing your movie. You have an inexperienced director who should not be directing this movie, and if that's who's still going to direct this movie, you got a long way to go, right? I just it's a little frustrating, and I think the bigger problem that I was mentioning earlier, in terms of getting the casual audience member, look, we have Mando and Grogu, right? And that's going to follow up with the Levy movie. Now, there's nothing that says that the Mando and Grogu movie can't connect to the Levy movie in some small, tiny form or way, even in the smallest way. There's nothing that says it does. The Filoni movie more than likely is going to connect to the Mando and Grogu movie. The Mangold movie would not. The Rey Jedi Fallen Order movie, unless Grogu is going to pop up in that, likely not. This isn't the Avengers. This isn't the MCU. So now you're going to have what? 3 or 4 different Star Wars movies in half a decade that aren't telling the same story and are all over the place. I'm telling you right fucking now, it isn't going to work. It is a bad idea. Having one spin-off or something, fine. But if you have 4 or 5 movies and only 2 of them go together and the rest are standalones, it doesn't work. You're building no fucking hype for your next thing. People are going to be lost. If you don't think people went to see Rogue One and went, "Where's Rey?" You're out of your fucking mind, because Johnny and I heard it all the time. We talked about it at length on Star Wars Wastelands forever. Rogue One still did okay, nowhere close to The Force Awakens. It's a bad stance, and it's one of the reasons why I think new leadership is needed there. There's no clear-cut direction. You have a bunch of different captains pulling the fucking sinking Titanic in 5 different directions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. But also, the way I look at it, even if we do have an offshoot, which we know we're probably going to get, we do need to show that there is more out there than just the Mandoverse or the Skywalker saga. And I think at least one of the films that's being touted here that's actually going to happen, needs to do that. So we can world build, we can get more out of it versus staying cooped up in this one area. I mean, that's a big area. Don't get me wrong. This part of the galaxy that all this is happening in is huge. So, it's going to be still epic storytelling, but the one thing that the expanded universe did well, or Legends now as they call it, is they made the galaxy feel even bigger. They gave us new characters. They weren't afraid to go for it. They weren't afraid to kill off characters that people liked. And yes, it's basically the books and some video games, but if we can get this in, I agree with you, it's time for new leadership. But with that new leadership, they need to be willing to take risks. They need to be willing to give us something that we've really never seen before, but also let's bring some of these characters that we like, whether it be from novels or video games or whatever, into it slowly but surely, even if it's just a mention or Rey finds a holocron or a new Jedi that's basically a Padawan learner or even a Jedi Knight that trained under Rey. It's time to really stop thinking inside the box that Disney's put Star Wars in, and really, when it comes to the movies and even shows, it's time to start thinking outside and trying to push everything further, because that's the only way that Star Wars as a brand will grow. instead of, and yeah, you could say with the Acolyte they took a chance, and with Skeleton Crew they took a chance, and we've seen how well both of those worked. One kind of sort of did and didn't, but ultimately, I'm ready as a fan to branch out beyond what we have. And I feel like once Filoni's movie comes in and we get this huge epic galactic battle that's pretty much a fight for the universe, which I'm kind of hoping it is, we can kind of settle things down a little bit and just kind of branch away from it, because there's going to be damage and devastation, and there's going to be stories to tell from that. And I just kind of hope that we get there at some point.
I just don't think you can pull the ship in 4 or 5 different directions unless you're going to have loose ties tying them together. And so far, the indication is that's not the case. And it hasn't been the case, really. It doesn't work for your casual audience. And I agree, they need to... Hey, my favorite Star Wars story, whether it's in a game, novel, movie, period. I love The Empire Strikes Back, but the best Star Wars story ever told is Drew Carpathian and his team with Knights of the Old Republic. It's the best Star Wars story ever told, period, in my opinion. Subjective. So, of course, I'd want to see something like that. And at the same time, though, I can understand from like a business sense that if they keep going the way they're going, these are not all going to be hits. They're going to be misses. And you're going to have... So let's, play along with me here. 2027, 50-year anniversary right now, lined up to be the Levy and Gosling movie. Don't be surprised if Ryan Reynolds sneaks in there too. And whatever that ends up being, great. Now, if it's a hit, Randy, and Johnny for that matter, let's say it makes $1 billion and people love the story, whatever they're doing. And then you follow that up with Filoni's movie, at least you're going back to the movie before that one with Mando and Grogu. But if you're following that up with the Rey movie or the Mangold movie, people are going to be like, what the fuck? Where's my $1 billion Gosling movie? Where's my movie after the Filoni movie? Why are we doing this? And then if you follow that up with another movie that has nothing to do with the two that I just mentioned, you're just confusing the fan base more. Again, it's not diehards that drive the box office. It's your casual audience member. And as much as us diehards want to see this character or that character, you need a clear-cut vision, and they don't have that right now. And I love the Levy hire, but at the end of the day, until there's a clear-cut vision, we're in trouble here. And I think you're going to continue to get, well, we've decided to go in a different direction. Whether it's them choosing to do so, or it's the higher-ups at Disney going, yeah, so maybe not, don't go and do that movie and do this one that, made $1 billion. Let's continue off that. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we want to focus on story and critical success, Disney, at the end of the day, cares about one thing and one thing only: money.
It's funny how overinflated the diehards have made their presence to the box office, because in reality, the diehards are great for the box office in weeks 5 and 6. Because when you're going back to see the movie for your 3rd, 4th, 5th, or more time because you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you're helping the box office in week 5 or 6. We're not the ones pushing it north of 200 million in week 1. It's Joe Blow who sees a trailer on TV and says, "Hey, that looks like fun. I think I'll go see that this weekend." It's the guy with his kids whose kids are like, "Oh, Dad, that looks like fun. Can we go see that?" And they take their family to the movie in opening weekend. They're the ones that push the box office. Diehards are great in week 5 and 6. But on opening weekend, we are a small drop in the overall pond that is the box office. And that's the reality. You need to bring in, the average fan. You need to bring in the guy who, sees the commercial on TV while he's watching, the basketball game or the football game or the baseball game or whatever sporting event you happen to see the trailer during, and says, "Hey, that looks like fun. Maybe I'll go see that." Or the family that's watching together after dinner and sees the trailer, and the kids get excited and think, "This is fun. I want to go see that." So you take the family out for your weekend adventure to go see a movie, and it's Star Wars. Those are the people you need to pull in. If you can't pull them in, then you're going to end up with Solo. And spoiler alert, not a good look for the box office.
Well, that is going to wrap up our Star Wars discussion for this week. It's February now. We are 2 months basically away from Celebration. You're going to have news and rumors and stuff like that trickling out over the next couple of months. We know Gosling's name's attached to the Levy movie. If you don't think we're going to hear another name before Celebration, you're out of your mind. We're going to. It'll be rumored. It won't be confirmed, of course. And technically, the rumor about Gosling was he hadn't signed on the dotted line, but it was basically a foregone conclusion that it was going to happen by basically every major trade out there. And it was received fairly positively, too. So I don't see why it wouldn't. Ryan Gosling's a talent. But, I struggle. I have nothing but love for Star Wars, fellas, and I want the best for it. And I know, Randy, you said, we need to move out of the Skywalker timeline and stuff and all that. But for me, it's you don't need to stay in that timeline, but you should be finding something that connects your future projects together. So, we'll see what happens in that regard. Let's shift forward here. Wrestling, Rumble, Raw after the Rumble. Johnny, you and I were together on Saturday. We had a little bit of a time being torn. Look, when Johnny and I get together for family events involving my kids' birthdays or anything like that, my spouse's side of the family is quite big in comparison to my side of the family, and I get torn in 10 different directions. So it's really hard to get a ton of time with any one individual while doing these things. But we had a little bit of time to talk about the Rumble. So we'll start with this. Were you happy with what we got from the pay-per-view in general, and then the Rumble match in general? Did it live up to your expectations?
I definitely had my issues watching the Rumble. They were more with the agents and team who put together that ladder match, because Jesus H. Christ, what were you thinking? I'll say to you the same thing I said to another group chat on Saturday night while watching it. Whoever cleared the finish of that ladder match needs to be fired immediately. I don't care who it was. I do not give a rat's tuchus who the agent was on that match. They need to be fired right now. And I had this argument with someone that, it's safe. It's safer than taking no, there was nothing safe about that spot. That spot was 100% unsafe.
Doesn't matter if it's a gimmick ladder either.
I said that made it worse. The gimmick ladder made it worse because with the gimmick ladder, there's absolutely zero way for Kevin to protect himself and prevent rolling over on his neck like that. There's zero way to protect that. If that had been an ungimmick ladder and he just took that as a flat back bump, it would have hurt like hell. But the odds of injury would have dropped dramatically. Could he have gotten injured doing it? Sure. Same as you would on any other back bump. But a flat back bump on that ladder without it breaking in the middle and folding him up like an accordion would have been 1,000 times safer than what happened, because he's extremely lucky he didn't break his neck. Extremely lucky. It is
also not to mention. I'm no move expert. Johnny's actually worked in the industry and been at ringside and helped with, teardowns and put ups and all that stuff. I've not. I have stepped in a ring. I've never taken a bump in the ring or anything, but I know that the rings themselves don't have as much give as people will want to make them out to.
Things are concrete.
But when you're a heavier person, and I love Kevin Owens, in terms of active WWE roster, definitely in my top 10, maybe even my top 5. You're a heavy dude, and you get swung down like that, even though it's not a far fall, you are going to go down with... So, for example, our buddy Tommy on the channel, If Randy gets Tommy up onto that onto that table, and Alabama slams him, that's the right name, right? Alabama
Yes.
slam. Okay,
Yep.
Bob Holly. Alabama slams him through the ladder like that. Tommy is going to go through at a different velocity weight and have more, less likelihood of injury given his weight. Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens is way more physically fit than me, but Kevin Owens and I very similar builds. And if Randy was to do that to Johnny and I, or Johnny or I, versus say Tommy, the impact is different. It just is. And when I seen the neck there, man,
I audibly screamed. Like, it was just I freaked out. Like, it was terrifying for me watching that because there was no safety in that spot.
And to be clear, my 16-year-old who was watching, it wasn't like rah rah hey hey. It was, oh no,
oh god,
hand to his mouth, legitimately worried.
Like, that spot is like, I had enough trouble like when they did the Fisherman Buster in the ring on the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was
at least.
Hey, guess what? Cody's hurt. I know they haven't talked about it right now, but he's injured, and we don't know how bad. And people might go, "Well, it can't be that bad." No one knew fucking CM Punk tore a tricep in the Royal Rumble last year.
Well, he did, but
he did. Yeah, he knew immediately. And when you go back and watch the footage, you can see.
Yeah.
But in terms of the public, everyone thought Punk was just showing up the next day on Raw. Yeah. It wasn't until a few hours before Raw did they go, "Oh, now it's out. There might be something really bad that happened." Yeah. Guess what? We don't know yet. I'm assuming he's going to be okay, but Cody could very well come out there on Friday and be like, "This happened." Yeah, he climbed the ladder. Guess what? Punk finished the Rumble match too. But bad stuff happens. They were incredibly fortunate. Kevin Owens.
He got very lucky. I'll say that. He got very lucky. And there's the old saying, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. This is one of those instances, because as great as those two guys are in ring, and they are both phenomenally amazing and talented workers, there was no way to do that safely in that way, and it just, they're lucky Kevin didn't get hurt. Very lucky. And I would, like I said, whoever would put that spot together, whoever cleared that finish, is getting sat down in the office and said, if you ever can do that again, you're on your ass before the show's even over. You will be escorted out of the building by security immediately. Do not do that again. And I don't care who the agent was. I don't actually know who the agent was. I haven't looked, but it just, I don't care.
Would you be shocked if it was Abyss? He seems to have done a lot of the Punk physical matches, like the cage and War Games and some of the other stuff.
Even if it is, he's someone who should know better.
For sure.
Especially
he's been there, done that. Yeah. And he's a big dude.
And that's another argument I got into with somebody else, was like, well, I'm sure it was their idea. Yeah, it absolutely was. And it's the agent's job to hear you and say, no.
It's their job to protect you from yourself.
Now, granted, are Kevin and Cody two guys who have enough stature in this business to change the finish on the fly and be like, it was a great idea, we're just going to do it? You can argue, people argue, well, guys don't do that. Bullshit. Like, I'll go ahead and I'll point to, two of the most famous instances of guys getting color in the 90s that were not supposed to get color. Bret Hart, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, and WrestleMania 8 and 13. His matches got color, and he was not supposed to do that either time. Did it anyway. Batista and Jericho in a cage match on SmackDown in like 2009 or something got fined $100,000 for getting color in a cage match when they weren't supposed to do that. Like, guys will do things they know they're not supposed to. And is it possible that that's what they did here? Certainly. But I deny that based solely on the fact that ladder was gimmicked. It's somebody cleared that. And if it went all the way to the top, if they went to Hunter and he said, "That's a great idea, let's do it." Maybe they did it in rehearsal and they had it safer, that there was a way they could do it. Like maybe Kevin was supposed to take it sort of further up on the ladder so he wouldn't fold over quite. You know what I mean? Like
if you go
if his back had hit further up the ladder, he may not have folded so far because his back would have been, the point where the ladder breaks, so it wouldn't have folded him up quite so hard. That's
if you
possible.
watch the replay of that, and I'm sure you have, but it took me a few times to notice. If you go back and watch it, it's on Netflix, really easy to do, people. It looks as if he's trying to bring his hands up to protect the neck. They just don't get there. And that's the difference between putting Tommy through it and Randy putting me or you through it. Like, you're going to fall quicker.
Was this something that they could have rehearsed earlier and done safely and been like, okay, yeah, you can do it because you can do it safely. Sure. I 100% believe that's possible. If that is the case, then I don't want to say that, it's sort of like, it goes back to the old idea, like if you famous examples of spots that you pitch that they're like, can you actually do that? Can you do it safely? Can you physically do it? You go out there and you do it. You prove you can do it. You do it safely and you move on and it happens. Could that be the case here, that they were out there, they, sort of did the walkthrough and, on Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever, they did their spot and it went flawlessly. Everything looked great and it went perfectly fine. But then in the course of the match, Cody gets hurt. They still do the spot. Was that the reason that this ended up so chaotically? Certainly possible. And in that instance, I'm a bit more, like, I'd like to believe that's what happened here, that they did the rehearsals and they tried it and it went flawlessly and Kevin didn't come anywhere close to getting hurt and he just back bumped through it because it worked perfectly. But they actually get out there, have the match. Cody's hurt. Cody's winded. Kevin's winded. They can't get in the right spot 100%. It doesn't work the way they want it to. Okay, that's unfortunate. It's a fact of wrestling. It does happen. So I'm probably not firing anybody for that. But I'm still saying, you know what, we're going to have to take that into account next time and realize that, you're going to wrestle a 20-minute match before you do this. Are you going to be able to do this while you're exhausted? That's a different argument. But, moving on to the other parts of it, I have not...
Hang on, before you do, just so while we're here, Randy, did you have any thoughts on the spot?
So, I was watching with a friend. We both audibly were like, holy shit. But because it to me, and, you can say yay or nay on this, but in my opinion, this almost felt like an AEW match in terms of like the physicality and some of the spots they took. I actually kind of got more of a reaction when Owens landed on his back, on the way he landed on his back on that ladder that was just, sitting on its side, and there was no give. I was like,
oh, you mean when Cody landed on the back?
No, when those Owens that landed on, literally they had it on its side and Cody dropped him right on the ladder, and like his back just,
those when you go, oh, that had to hurt.
Yeah, because
there's a moment where Kevin drops Cody on his back with the fisherman thing, I think Johnny mentioned.
Yeah.
Kevin kills the back of his head off that ladder on that spot.
Absolutely.
Did not protect it at all, and you can tell. I'm sure we've all hit our head off a table or a bunk bed or something and done the leg kick, or you're stomping your feet and you're like, oh, you just want that to go away. That was before the spot. It's just like,
well, and that's always a possibility that could have led to him not being able to cover up as much as he would have liked to on that one big spot. Obviously, it was meant to get that big of a reaction out of people, whether to be shock them or just for some people probably disgusted them, because you're not used to seeing that type of brutality in most WWE matches. If you've seen it before, then it's kind of like, it's still a holy shit moment, but it's also one of those where it's like, okay, someone cleared it. They talked it through. Yeah, it didn't probably go as planned. To see, then I like that on Raw, Owens definitely was selling the beating that he took just from the match itself. So
black eye.
It's. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets the belt at some point, because he deserves it. He puts his body through hell for the love of wrestling, and we get to see it on display. We're fortunate to get to see this stuff. Think about it. When we were kids, we didn't see this. We didn't really see these types of things. So we're very fortunate that we're in an era that we actually get to see it, to see these types of crazy just bumps.
Not in the mainstream anyway.
Yeah. Hopefully, Cody is not as injured as he could be. Hopefully Owens has just got some bumps and bruises. Obviously got a black eye. I was talking to my friend. I was like, at least we didn't get the Joey Mercury spot from way back in the day.
Because that, oh man,
yeah, exactly.
That dude
so
probably feels that.
Knows what knows. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, so I just want to backtrack to what you mentioned about AEW earlier, and I don't want to. I was going to mention it, but I don't want it to be looked at as like tribalism, WWE versus AEW or anything like that.
Right.
But like, I thought like when that spot happened, I was like, yeah, it's kind of like an AEW spot, right? And it's, I do think that's one of the areas AEW struggles with. And I was listening to Bubba Ray Dudley talk about this, and I actually agree with him. Not that I agree with a lot that he says, but on this front, like Johnny mentioned last week, he's a fan of professional wrestling. Johnny will watch a ton. Johnny knows more wrestlers that I don't know than I do know. As confusing as that is, it just is. But and I'm talking as a casual viewer. That's what kills AEW and why it doesn't gain traction. Is you get Ospreay in there or one of the other guys, and every time you see them, it's a bunch of this, high acrobatic, big spot, takes tons of talent, to land these moves, but it's the norm. You see it 30 times in a match, and you see it 250 times over 4 or 5 of their matches. Sometimes doing something once or twice is more effective, especially on the audience watching, especially if it's a mainstream audience, than doing it 500 times. There's something to be said about having something stay special. And for me, in terms of mainstream audiences, that is one of the reasons why AEW, it's not the punk drama or the young bucks, the people that don't like them or whatever. It's what's supposed to be special isn't. It's the norm. And for diehard AEW fans, they love that. But for a casual audience viewer who watches that, they go, so this is what it is all the time. Yeah. And like I remember some AEW ladder spots too that aren't great. Even the Cody Sammy spot there, and I think it was Cody's last match, second to last match, something like that.
Yeah.
There, like there's a couple of spots in that match that make you go, "Ooh, not great." And
yes, Sammy's definitely taken some bumps that you just kind of look at and go, "How did you survive that?"
Someone's gonna die is what's gonna happen, and someone will die in WWE too if they keep doing what they just did to Owens. Like, we're human beings. And as much as we want to be Supermen, none of us are. And it just takes one bad occurrence. And I don't want to see anyone die or end their career or have the Draws thing happen or the Big E thing happen. Like, nobody needs any of that.
Well, shit. Think about how lucky Lesnar was when he botched that shooting star press all those years ago.
The one on Angle there, yeah.
Yep. Wrestlemania 19.
Could have killed himself.
But that the size of his neck protected him. But still, that was the way he landed. Even I just was like, "Oh God!" And he finished the match, which surprised the hell out of me.
I just to Johnny's point, like I get it. Sometimes people want to do this or want to do that, but sometimes you need someone there to protect them from themselves. This is way more minor, so don't read into this. But like, I had to go to the hospital yesterday. I spent yesterday in the hospital. I thought it was heart related. Could end up being that, but it ended up. The one thing they do know I did is I have a severe pec strain on my left side, which explains why I couldn't even play video game arcades with the rumbling without being like, "Oh my God, this is killing me." Might be a tear. The CT scan was machines are down there, and that's just from shoveling snow when I'm not supposed to because my body just hasn't recovered to that point yet. These guys are taking, Randy, you mentioned it, the earlier bump there in the match might have prevented Kevin from getting his hands up to protect himself on the last one there. Maybe it was Johnny. I don't remember which one of you guys mentioned it, but like,
Yeah, because he hit his head on the ladder on that move,
yeah,
and that could
bad
have just
too.
kind
Like
of
it fully
knocked him for a
hits.
loop.
Like concussions are a thing, and there's another spot in that Rumble match on the outside that doesn't go as planned. That's not great either. And it's wrestling. There's going to be risks. There just is, and there's going to be bumps. But sometimes you don't need to do what we saw. Is all. I'm glad everybody's safe. Well, I'm glad Kevin's safe.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out Friday about Cody though, since he definitely took his fair share of bumps.
There's a very, very realistic possibility that Roman Reigns is concussed too, but we'll get to that in a bit. Sorry, Randy, you had another thing you wanted to say on the Owens Cody thing.
No, I mean, if you look at the match as a whole, it was a great match. I enjoyed it a lot. Could they have taken fewer risks? Sure, but ladder matches, whether it's current age wrestling or even some of the stuff we've seen in the past, like with some of the Money in the Bank ladder matches, with like I mentioned, Joey Mercury getting splattered, or I think it was Sin Cara one year got his back pinched in between the ladders and it ripped off a huge chunk of skin. Like there's always going to be risk with ladder matches, no matter what. That's just par for the course. But still, it was a great match. It's going to go down. It's going to be remembered mostly for the sick bumps, but it still was just it was just an overall it told a story. It told just how much those two guys got to the point where they just absolutely hated each other. And that's what wrestling is. That's what professional wrestling is for the most part, is telling a story. And they told a big story through their match.
Let's move on to the Rumble match. I'm assuming Johnny will be back here momentarily. I think I just got a buzz. I just got to see if I can add him in from where I am. Don't make me go back. Oh, there he is. Okay. Let's move to the men's Rumble match. We'll save the women's for next week. We'll talk a little bit about that just because we're running late here. Johnny, your thoughts on the men's Rumble match? How was that for you? Minus Penta getting eliminated early, but we'll pretend that didn't happen.
I'm okay with that because some of those spots it's gonna happen. You just need to properly edit around it, especially when it's not a spot where somebody's being supposed to be eliminated. If this is a match where you need, if there's one match a year where rehearsals are significantly important, it's the Royal Rumble. Not just from a talent perspective, but from a production standpoint. You need to, the cameras need to know where they're supposed to be in a match like that. And I think overall I enjoyed it. It was a good match. There were spots that I definitely enjoyed. There were spots that made me go, what the fuck are you doing? Specifically the entry of I Show Speed pissed me off to no end until Braun literally decleated him and cut him in half. And I enjoyed that a great deal. But, I celebrities in the Royal Rumble never have business being there. That annoys me imminently, especially when I think you had a much better option for throwing in a random entrant into that spot in the Royal Rumble, and he happened to be sitting at ringside with a commentator's helmet on. Because if you don't think that the pop for Pat McAfee entering the Royal Rumble would not have been one of the biggest of the night, you're deaf and dumb, because it would have been. So I think he should have been the one they threw in that spot. But I digress. That's I will say this openly and honestly. I have not been, the Royal Rumble has been the most predictable match every year going back to, let's say, 2002. Has pretty much been a foregone conclusion for who's going. Now, there were a couple exceptions where, you might be like, oh, okay, especially in the 2-belt era. There have been times where people have won where you're like, oh, well, I didn't quite see that coming. But yeah, it makes sense. This is the first time, openly and honestly, I was shocked, surprised, and amazed at the finish of the Royal Rumble because didn't see it coming, not one bit, not one iota. There are other people who are like, yeah, I expected that. I saw it happening. I saw it coming. We talked about him as a dark horse, but once it got down to the end there, it's just like, oh, well, it's just, John Cena wins, LOL, as the old cliche joke is. But it didn't go down that way, and it played out amazingly. The reactions, the moments, the intensity, all of that was there. And you had John playing it up to the nth degree amazingly. Like the look on his face when he hits the ground is beautiful.
That was a chef's kiss for the ending.
Absolutely. Like the simplicity of it too. Like it seems like, and this is just a critique I have just about battle royals in general, is that they all end up with two guys fighting on the apron. I'm tired of that. I think it's stupid that it continues to keep happening. And they did that. And I was just like, oh, well, it's just going to be another one of those. Great, whatever. Okay. It's going to be a typical. And then it wasn't. We get the kick, we get the spot, and Cena pumps him up like he's going to drum up the attitude adjustment and throw him to the floor, and that's going to be it. And you assume that that's sort of what it's going to be. And then all of a sudden, he's in the ring, and he just knocks Cena off, and it's just simple, and it's, I didn't see it coming. I expected, Cena was going to do another one of those, whoa, and hold on and keep it going and stay alive. And he didn't. He just slipped on the banana peel, and that's it. And the look on his face, like Randy said, chef's kiss. It was beautiful. And another instance of camera was in the right place because you saw it. You get the camera full on with John standing there like somebody just kicked his dog. And you got Jimmy in the ring celebrating. Like it was perfect. It was perfection. And I have not really truly been genuinely surprised about a winner of a Royal Rumble since like 2002. And before 2002, because that was obvious, Triple H's come back off the quad, but you have to go back 20 plus years to have a Rumble finish that genuinely gets me excited. That one did it because I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it happening. There was no part of me that believed that's what was going to happen, and having it end that way after, the Rumble match itself had some issues, and you hear some things coming out of it that, there were some issues, not just, like Penta getting eliminated, not being able to hold on to the spot and those sort of shenanigans, but you expect those in the Rumble. You expect things to happen where, eliminations aren't going to occur quite like they're supposed to because, there's 5-10 people in the ring. Chaos is going to ensue, but, it just genuinely, it was a great match. It had great moments, but most importantly, it had a memorable finish and the right finish. Because I will say this, if there is one thing I can say is that from a corporate standpoint, from a merchandising standpoint, from a booking standpoint, the right person won. We've talked about Cena and his battle with destiny and win the belt, and you can still get there. There are other roads to get there because in pro wrestling, in the WWE, all roads lead to Wrestlemania.
God, please don't get there. Don't get there. We've talked about this. He doesn't need it at Mania.
No, but the road there
That's
now, I'm actually okay with it. If he goes into the chamber and wins that and gets there that way, I'm more okay with it than him winning the Rumble. Because this goes back to what I said at Money in the Bank last year. This is your chance to make a new, genuine, bona fide star. And they took it. They took a guy who has managed to, go from being a tag team specialist to being a moderate mid-card attraction, all the way to quite possibly one of the top stars in the company. I have not seen a rise this meteoric from that standpoint, from being a tag team specialist to being a mid-card guy to being a main eventer to, headlining a few random pay-per-views to winning the goddamn Royal Rumble and headlining WrestleMania. There's somebody else that had a career path pretty much like that. His name was Shawn Michaels.
Oh, dude, you think he's headlining? I'll
I
take that bet
mean
right
that
now.
in the sense of
Oh,
he's headlining night one.
he's gonna win a championship, but no, I don't
I
think he is.
absolutely think he is.
I will take. Let's have a friendly bet. Let's say a affordable affordable dinner, $20 limit.
I genuinely I think that the dumbest, stupidest, most ridiculous thing they could do is not put them in the main event night one, because I understand
no
that the
chance
night two
Gunther.
main event is your main event. It's the one that people are going to talk about, but you cannot. The only exception to that rule, and I'll say this: the only way they don't headline night one is if you put the women's main event in the main event at night one, Charlotte and Tiff. If you put that in the main event at night one, then okay.
Fuck that. Charlotte needs to be put in the fucking Spirit Squad box.
Oh wow.
And sent to fucking Ohio Valley. She has go away fucking heat. Nothing she did was fucking impressive. No, thank you. I'll save that for next week. I agree with everything you're saying on Jay, minus the. I'm just telling you now. This is the way WWE has typically been. I bet you he if it's Gunther is the champion, he's not main eventing night one. There's no chance in hell. I will take that bet any day. Now, if Gunther loses that title between now and then, and that's not that I don't like Gunther. I think Gunther's a fantastic wrestler and a perfect example of how to transform your body and that goals can be reached if you work hard enough to do it. I like Gunther on the mic, but here's the problem. You burn that match at Saturday night's main event. You burn that match 2 other times this year. It's no, just no. I get we're not paying $80 or $70 or whatever we were paying at the end of the pay-per-view cycle for Mania. But for me, no. And it's not that Jay doesn't deserve it. He does, but you better take the title off Gunther then and have him go up against someone else, which I don't think he's going to. I think it's pretty clear he's going to go up against Gunther. And no, and you're not putting the women's match. Sorry, Tiffany Stratton main event WrestleMania. Fuck that. And I mean this with the most utmost respect, and I don't want to offend anyone. And I'm all we had the representation talk either last week or the week before on movie side of things. I'm sorry, just because there's a women's champion does not mean the women's match should be the fucking main event. It should not. And I'm not even saying, hey, Punk needs his main event. Should he have it based on if we're going off merch and stuff? Yeah, because other than CM Punk, who's the who were the 2 top merch sellers all around in 2024? CM Punk, and we've been talking about him or Johnny's been talking about him for the last 10 minutes. Jay fucking Uso. 2 biggest WWE merchers of merch movers of 2024. Jay is way over. Jay's over reminds me of when I don't remember the year, so forgive me. When Daniel Bryan blew up in WWE. Right? That's
Spoiler
what
alert,
it reminds me of.
it's the same year Punk quit. Yeah.
Is it?
WrestleMania 30.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So 2014. And Johnny, when I'm done here, can you read the super chat? I'm on my phone. I can't make it. Actually, apparently my phone's going to die, so I'm going to switch back to the computer to end this. But just no, I'll take that bet. Well, I'll ask you for a bet right now. I'm not saying it's not the main event if Gunther loses at like Elimination Chamber or something. Don't know who he would lose to at this point, but I just to me that's bad booking. It's horrible booking. You gave that match away for free 3 fucking times. That doesn't excite me at all. Jay winning the title excites me because the fucking guy deserves it, and I hope he gets it. You could even sell me on some way that Jay takes on Cody, although I don't think there's a chance that that's going to happen. I like Jey Uso. Is he the best in ring guy? No. Is he gassed after his entrances every fucking time? So would I be? I'd probably have another heart attack, to be honest. Knock on wood. But Mania main event, no, and definitely not. I'll tell you what, if Tiffany and Charlotte are the main event of night one, I guarantee you, if Netflix was to release the metrics, people are turning that shit off. I'm not saying 50% of the audience, but you might see 15% of the audience turn it off. Nobody wants to see that be the main event. Nobody, except for maybe Ric Flair. Although probably not even him. He probably wants to be in the main event. So, Yeah, hard no. But hey, if it is Jay versus Gunther, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, it wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the second time. Probably wouldn't even be the third time where someone wins the Royal Rumble and they're not the main event at WrestleMania. The biggest one that I can think of is Sheamus. The other one, Alberto Del Rio, and then there's another one. I'm sure, Nakamura, I believe.
Yeah, but that was headlined by the women.
Yeah, and that made sense. That was the triple threat match, right? Yeah, that made sense. That was a big enough women's match to do that. You don't have a big enough women's match in your division right now to do that because you don't fucking highlight them. They're not, like, sorry, say what you want about giving Triple H his flowers. His work with the women's division,
I stopped giving Triple H his flowers in June.
But you know, people love to. That's a big thing, and I don't know. Randy, what about you? Where do you fall on this? I noticed Johnny hasn't completely said that he's going to do the bet.
Well, I'm not, because it's, I don't trust Triple H enough not to fumble this bag. Like that's sort of my thought process. Why I wouldn't make that.
I don't. I think it's a fumble if he does do that.
I think it's more important, especially if he's going to win the belt. That moment needs to be the closer. It needs to be the end. You want to create that moment and that memory. The entire crowd yeeting to go off the air with him celebrating with the belt is the moment you want. It's the moment you want everyone to remember heading out of that first night. It's the moment you need to create because it's the most
well, then they better add a third party to that match. And I'm not saying Punk. Clearly, they're not going that route. I'm saying add someone else, mix it up, make it a gimmick match, end with a ladder match, do a cage match, do something that is not the last 3 fucking times you've done that match. And the problem is Saturday night's main event just fucking happened. It just happened.
I can't explain that one away. I can't. I've spent a lot of time in the Triple H era trying to scratch my head around. Yes, you're trying to shorten events. You're trying to short pay-per-views, but what the fuck are we doing? Why are you giving some of these matches away earlier? Like NXT next week is a prime example. You have a feud that has been brewing for months, and you're going to blow it off on the go-home episode of TV instead of the fucking pay-per-view live event you have 4 days later? What are we doing? Pay-per-views don't need to be 4 matches. That worked great in 1990. Having a short pay-per-view worked great in the early 90s.
It's funny, the companies have the opposite problems. AEW has way the fuck too many matches on a pay-per-view, and WWE doesn't have enough.
It's just I don't
Randy, who's right? John, just because we're running long here. Randy, whose side you going on? Or are we both fucking wrong and you got something else?
The thing is you both make good arguments for what you want to see happen. The problem here is that we all know night 2 is probably going to be potentially Cena and Cody, more than likely. However, I like Johnny's take on the idea of having Jay main event night 1, winning the title, and just sending the crowd home in a frenzy for him finally beating the odds and beating Gunther. However, the biggest issue I have with this is it would be the second straight WrestleMania that Gunther drops a title. And I feel like he deserves better than that, but also long title reigns only work for so long. I mean, Roman, obviously it worked because you had to build Cody up to the point of where it was finally time to give him the belt.
You had the scarcity.
But now that that's done and over with, we got Cody coming up on a year. So Gunther was really not too far behind him in that respect in terms of the when he won his title. But it's just the idea that it's the second straight WrestleMania where Gunther's going to potentially drop a title. And at this point, I feel like for this match, it has to be something that leaves the door open for Gunther to challenge, or at least get his shot getting it back. So a gimmick match of some sort, because it just feels, it feels like we've seen it all so far, with the exception of something that would triple threat, fatal four-way, something just to give us something different rather than just a straight up match, since we've seen Gunther just, whoop the piss out of Jay many times already. But
And someone, I know people like Rocky 3, Rocky 3. If I hear another fucking Rocky 3 reference with bad booking, let me tell you, I'm gonna fucking.
But think of it this way: they did the same thing with Sami Zayn leading up to that match against Gunther. He kept on trying, and Gunther just always had a one up on him. Now, I liked the promo between Jay and Gunther on Monday night. I liked the fact that Gunther's like, if you choose me, I'm going to make your life a living hell from now until WrestleMania. It's like to the point of you may not even make it to WrestleMania. I like that. I like that we're seeing more emotion out of Gunther because of the fact of Jay more than likely choosing him. After Gunther's beaten him so many times, it's like, you're not worth my time. So I like that story they got going. I like the underdog vibes here, but unfortunately, because of what we saw with Sammy last year, it's hard to just sit there and look at it and say that this isn't the road they're going to take again. And again, I do feel like Johnny's idea of a night one main event works here. I still feel like I don't know where to fit Punk and Roman at this point, though we were all pretty sure it's going to happen. And the women's match as the main event of night one, it's not big enough. I'm sorry. As good as Tiffany Stratton is, as good as much as she's built herself up, and the fact that we have a returning Charlotte Flair, I'd rather see Charlotte take on Rhea again.
That nobody wants to see.
I'd rather see Charlotte take on Rhea Ripley again, just because those two have always put on solid matches. So, and I like how, we'll talk about it next week, obviously, with the women's side of things, but it's just, I just don't know where to go with that or fit that particular match in WrestleMania. So, Sean, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go with Johnny on this just because it makes the most sense to me from a story standpoint and a feel-good moment for the fans and for Jay to just get that big, huge pop at the end. And I think his phone died.
It would appear that that's quite possible. I think, the necessity of it is obviously there. I think you have the built-in stuff here. Like, you have Gunther able to be like, you failed against me 4 times already. Why do you want to do this again? And the tenacity of it. And like, yeah, you can argue, well, that's pretty much exactly what Sammy's storyline was a year ago. So what? You're still spent all of this time.
So what?
Gunther. Yeah, so what?
You want to see the same thing over and over and over again? Didn't we have 15 years of John Cena to do that?
And we saw how much the crowd turned against him when it came to that, too.
The problem is, I tell you, buddy, but nothing is original in pro wrestling.
Nothing's original anymore, pal.
But that's the point. You're going to have these stories repeating themselves. Like, it's
Triple H has beaten us over the head with it now. If this is the direction
you've spent the last 4 or 5 years presenting Gunther as the best wrestler in the world, like the best wrestler out there, and it's a reality that has been droned in on people. He is the best wrestler, and we point to the Saturday Night's main event, but he slipped on a banana peel that night. Like, he wasn't a dominant performance. He came close, and then he slipped on a banana peel, and Gunther hit the powerbomb, and that was it. Game over. I think that's the setup here. Is that I almost beat you that night. You're good, but I'm better. Right now, I'm better. I think, and you're going to get that emotion, the passion, and like Randy said, Gunther brought it on Monday night. He brought out that extra passion that he saves for Mania time, which I'm all for that, because this is the time. This is prime time. This is when the lights are shining brightest. This is when you bring out your A game, and saving your promos for this time of year is the right decision, especially when you're a guy being built on, I'm better than you. I'm just going to beat your ass.
I love that too. And I love the idea of Jay winning. I'm sorry to break people's hearts here, but on February 4th, 11:29 p.m., I am telling you, Jey Uso, if it's just Jay and Gunther, the only way that match is closing is if it's a gimmick match of some sort. It will not be a straight wrestling match. And if it is, it's going to open night 2 or be midway through the card on night 1. And that's just the way it's going to be. Sorry, but that's what's coming. People don't have to like it. And maybe I'll eat crow. Maybe I'll be well, I was wrong and Johnny was right on this night. Don't think there's a chance in hell it's happening. It's just not a big enough match to main event WrestleMania. Maybe had they not had one so soon as we just talked about. By the way, is my audio okay? I had to go back to the computer. My phone died.
Yeah.
Yep, here you're just fine.
It's just not. Sorry. Like, it's not about the championships anymore in WWE. It's about what's the biggest match that you can do that is going to have the biggest presence worldwide. And guess what, fellas? It ain't Jey Uso and Gunther, and it's not because of Jay either. And I love Gunther. Gunther's just not over with mainstream audiences. I'm not talking mainstream wrestling audience or the diehard Monday Night Raw fan. I'm talking the mainstream audience that tunes into big events like this that's going to give WrestleMania the big numbers. It ain't main eventing. I'm sorry. It's just not. And I'm not saying CM Punk's going to main event either. To touch on Randy's point earlier, to shift gears a bit here, you said you think it's still Punk and Roman. Well, the report over the last couple of days, and you can see why it's this. And again, it's not coming from Fightful. It's not coming from Ibu, who's probably, hiding in a cave somewhere, hoping someone doesn't shit on him at the moment. Is Punk versus Roman versus Seth. And this might surprise people.
I can see that.
I don't want to see that match. It does fucking nothing for me. Nothing. And I'm someone who likes triple threat matches. If I have to choose between a really good triple threat match and a singles match, I'm probably choosing the triple threat match. But it doesn't work for me. Seth doesn't deserve to be in that match. I'm sorry. Seth has done nothing the last year. The year before, workhorse, the face of the company, everything. The last year, I'm sorry. It's just not there. It feels forced. It feels shoehorned. It feels like Triple H has to have his fucking guy in there. If you're going to do Punk versus Roman, do Punk versus fucking Roman. Because if you make it a triple threat match, I'm sorry, you are really removing the Heyman element from that. Compared to how much it could be a focus if it was just a singles match. I don't want to see, honestly, can't believe I'm saying this. I'd rather see Roman versus Punk. I'd rather see Roman versus Seth than see that triple threat match. That's just me. That triple threat. I would rather, if you're going to do a triple threat match, do Cody, Cena, Punk. Go do that one. But Roman, Seth, Punk doesn't work for me. And I'm saying this just as a CM Punk fan. Doesn't work for me. Not what I want. Is the match big enough to main event night 1 without a title? I think so. 3 guys. But again, you burn through the Punk and Seth thing so much already that for me, there isn't a lot of meat left on that bone. The more intrigued, did Seth have anything to do with the massive social media number hits that Punk and Roman did? He wasn't even fucking there. He had nothing to do with it. It doesn't work. If you want Seth and Roman, do Seth and Roman. Before anyone touches on that, because this has been up on the screen a long time, Jerry sent in a $10 super chat. Evening, Sean, Johnny, Randy. Owen should have won the WWE Championship. Not a fan of year-long runs. Roman the exception. The less frequent long runs, the more special there. I agree. Not every fucking champion needs to hold the belt for a year. And in Triple H's thing, it seems like that's where it goes. And that needs to switch up a bit or else it becomes too predictable. He was going on during the press conferences. Sometimes it's good to go with the unpredictable thing. Sometimes it's good to go predictable, but sometimes it's good to go unpredictable. Fella, your championship runs have been painfully predictable. Painfully. And I'm with Jerry on this one. I'm not saying I would have dropped it to Kevin, but like Cody's run didn't need to be a year. It just didn't. And you know what wouldn't surprise me if it goes longer than a year?
Cody's run has been pretty boring, to be perfectly honest.
With the high spot stuff. If you do it too much, it's not special anymore.
I have thought this, and I've said it to people, and this is gonna, you're gonna require a knowledge of professional wrestling history to understand this statement. But Cody Rhodes is Ricky Steamboat. The money is in the chase, not the conquer. The money is there while he's chasing the monster to win the belt. It's Ricky Steamboat chasing Ric Flair. You do great money with that program, but once Ricky finally wins the belt, you realize pretty quickly, I got nothing to do with this now. Like the money's in the chase, and that's fine. For a babyface champion, that's where it is. There's two types of baby faces. There's the Ricky Steamboat type of baby face where you chase the heel, and then you finally conquer the heel, and that's the moment. And then there's the Hulk Hogan type of baby face, where your job is to be the superhero and smash down the villain, and that's not Cody. He's not the superhero smashing down the villains. As much as he'd like to think that, he's not. That's not him. That's not who he is. His money is in the chase. And that's why the chase was so good. That's why they were able to make it a nearly 2-year-long program, because people were invested in the chase. It's that old saying, of a dog chasing after the mailman. What's he going to do when he finally catches him? The dog chasing the car. What are you going to do when you finally catch it?
Fellas,
probably going to turn around and run home.
I got massive breaking news at 11:35 p.m. at night. Wild. I still have half a sub left that I get to have after this show, and I'm fucking over the moon about it.
That's awesome.
Sorry, I forgot I didn't finish my dinner. So I just sitting here thinking, wow, this has been a long show. It's been a good show, but it's been a long show, and I'm fucking hungry now. And I'm like, geez, what am I just gonna like munch on before bed? It's like, oh, I actually get to something pretty good. So,
did you get a chance to take a yeet break when you were switching from your phone to your computer?
Speaking of which, did anyone catch the thumbnail here? I like this thumbnail. Hang on, you can't really see it. By the way, Jerry, thanks for the support as always, man. You're very generous. Some people, might scoff at $10, but every little bit helps us. And you've always been more than generous, man. So it is more than appreciated. Spino's eating. That was my WWE representation on the poster. So, yeah, I was quite proud of myself over that one. I
don't think Spinosaurs eat, but they
eat. They may not eat.
All right. Well, let's end with this one, fellas. We've seen we'll get more into the Rumble next week. We've gone really long. What are your thoughts on the triple threat thing? I don't like it. I'm sorry, I just don't. The Punk, Roman, Seth.
I don't think it does anything for any one of them, really. It's just it's if they go that route, it's just there. And yeah, I get whomever doesn't get pinned can be like, well, you never pinned me, blah blah blah. We're continuing the feud, so on and so forth. Honestly, I would definitely rather just continue with Punk and Roman, just because we still don't know the favor that Punk wants from Heyman. And I feel like this is something that can lead to that, and figuring it all out. You don't sit there throw out a mystery like that and then abandon it because you got nothing for Seth. That's your own damn fault for the way you booked him. But last year, he's also recovering from injuries a lot. So he didn't get to be in the forefront like he normally would. And then other wrestlers that you could have put against Seth. I mean, we're going to get Drew and Damian Priest, even though
we'll talk about that one next week. But let me tell you, the idea that Seth could get shoehorned into that match and Drew, I like Damian Priest. I do. He's not a main eventer, but I do. What the fuck are we doing here? Like, no wonder the guy's pissed off. Like, I know Triple H has a hard on for Seth Rollins, but like, enough's enough. You know, have him go do fucking something else on that night. You know, I feel legitimately bad for Drew McIntyre, which we don't have time to get into tonight, and we'll put that on the docket next week. But mismanagement there for sure, in my opinion. Hey, it's still time for things to change. There's still a possibility Punk could go up against Cody. I don't think it's happening. I think it seems pretty clear it's going to be Cena. I think it seems pretty clear Punk's going to get screwed at Elimination Chamber, and that's where the... Wait, what did I say? Johnny's giving me a look.
No, Johnny keeps freezing, so he's giving looks.
Oh, okay. I think it's going to be Cena and Cody, sorry. But like, to me, this is where I think it's too predictable. Now, I thought last night was predictable up until Seth came up before the match. If Seth didn't come up before the match, it's like, oh, well, Seth is screwing over Punk and Sammy's winning and Sammy's getting the match. I think I sent Johnny a message.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If I was to book Mania, and this is not the whole card, at this point, I'm probably going Roman Rollins and Gunther Jay at some point, and Punk Cody. And I'm going to steal Johnny's prediction from way earlier in this year. I don't know if you remember if he made it, but he did. And I'm going to go Cena and Orton and be Cena's last WrestleMania opponent.
I predicted Braun as Cena's Mania. I never said.
Maybe you predicted Orton for the last match. Then I don't remember. But you had a bit where you talked about it.
Last match with Orton is what I said. But okay, well, WrestleMania, I wanted him to make somebody, but now they're just doing the chase.
So there is a dark horse here for Mania that we could pit Punk or Seth against, depending on how you want to do it. Logan Paul.
Well, let's not say we did. Okay.
Think of it this way, considering if you're trying to if you're trying to figure out what to do with Seth, Punk, and Roman, there's one outlier there who basically pissed all three of them off, and that's him. Look, as a human being, I dislike the guy hugely. He's still athletically gifted regardless, so I can respect him for that, but this triple threat thing, no, we can't have it. We need to find something for somebody to do, and I still say it needs to be Punk Roman. So Seth is the odd man out, period, at this point.
I'll take Logan Paul versus John Cena over Logan Paul versus any of them, just because of the entertainment industry and shit like that. But
yeah, no thanks. None of those guys works against Logan Paul. None of them can have the type of match Logan needs to have to be successful.
I was gonna say, I think there's a reason why Logan is now in the Rey Mysterio thing. I mean, I'm sure it's a match, but
yeah, that would work. That'd be great. I'll say this: Logan, as a celebrity who came into wrestling, is the greatest at that particular. He's not a good person.
He's a wonderful athlete,
but his ability in the ring is amazing. You know, I wish he would put as much time into that as he does into being an idiot outside of the ring. But I digress. He needs someone more suited to movement. None of those guys are about movement. Logan's worst match in his career to date is his match with Roman in Saudi Arabia. Because Roman's style is slow, it's methodical, and it builds to the crescendo. Logan needs someone he can sprint with, and that is not any of those guys.
I like the mix up in styles when they do that. But yeah, we'll talk more about Mania next week. I just want to get one more thing before it's outdated and doesn't matter. What was everyone's thoughts on Punk and Zayn last night? Other than the fucking horrible Netflix glitching, I thoroughly enjoyed that match.
It was one of Punk's best matches he's had since being back in WWE.
That's how he needs to wrestle. Sorry, but he's 47 years old. First of all, I would not have had him wrestle 48 hours after the Royal Rumble. I would have had him take one of those other 2 weeks of qualifying matches. And it feels like it was on the fly because Punk almost never wears the same thing back to back. Definitely wouldn't have returned home in between there. Actually, he definitely didn't. He was with Finn Balor and Braun Breaker, and I forget who the other guy was. But there's pictures of them at a gym and in town on the Sunday. But he has to be that technical guy. He worked the arm. I'm not saying he's Bret Hart. He's not Bret Hart, but
as much as he likes to think he is.
Yeah, no. Until the guy learns, you apply a better sharpshooter than CM Punk does, or half that fucking roster does. I'm sorry. Oh, it drives me nuts when they fucking put the sharpshooter on wrong.
There are 2 Johnny-approved sharpshooters in professional wrestling, and that's it.
But that's how he worked the elbow. It was technical for Punk. Slow, technical, aggressive, shit-talking. It's kind of what Steve Austin was in his last year. More than his last year, but specifically the last year, he really had to dial it back a bit. To me, that's how you don't have fucking Punk going to the top rope trying hurricanranas. You don't. There's no need for it. He's 47 years old. He's top 2 merch seller in the company. He's your biggest ratings draw period on TV. That's just a fact. Don't fucking do that shit. Have him do what he's doing. Even the Drew match at Hell in a Cell, it was great, but if you look at the spots, other than the suplex through the table, there wasn't really anywhere Punk was going to kill himself on unless it was a fluke. So I liked it, and I told Johnny last night, I like Sami Zayn more and more and more. Can someone please tell me what Ska Boy is? Because I didn't get what the fuck that meant, but everyone seems to be popping for it.
It's sort of, if you look at Sammy when he first debuted in the WWE, it's that look, that type of style and genre-esque thing. That's the joke there.
I'm still lost, but okay.
It's musical. It's a music thing.
It's a music thing.
Music.
Yeah, see, I had no idea. So I didn't know if it was like a prior gimmick or something like that.
No, his gimmick before that was very generic.
Oh, I know the El Generico thing, but yeah. I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I liked the match though. I dug it. I wish Netflix could have kept it together. I dug the ending with Kevin Owens. I thought it was very good. I liked it a lot. I thought Punk was definitely losing.
It was what I thought it was. It was what I expected from those two.
They had good chemistry. Say what you will. I get it. It's not gonna
for a first time ever match. Yeah,
it's not Ospreay versus Omega. I get it for people, but it was a really good, compelling story match, and they had good chemistry. And I can't believe they've never ever had a match anywhere ever before.
I'm not.
Of course you're not, but
well, no, it just timeline wise, their timelines wouldn't have crossed paths.
I mean, the closest would have been Ring of Honor, but even then, they're too far apart time wise.
Not even close. I think maybe Generico had worked for Ring of Honor maybe once or twice. That's what I'm saying. Maybe, but that'd have been the only time I could have thought of. I'd have to look into that, but I don't even think that would be close. I'd say Punk was already in the WWE, on TV, by the time Generico and Kevin joined Ring of Honor on any sort of regular basis.
Yeah, no idea. Anyway, so guys, I'm going to call it here. I got work in the morning, unfortunately, and it's going to be a wonderful -20, and that doesn't even include wind chill. So we'll pick up. I'm sure there won't be as much just generic movie news to talk about next week, so we can go wrestling heavy unless there's a bunch of news.
Review that trailer too, since the Jurassic World trailer is dropping tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. If I get time, I'm going to try to do a reaction on the channel, but
I expect we'll have more trailers to talk about. It is Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes, for sure.
Very true.
Super Bowl Sunday. All right, Johnny, where can everybody find you, man? What do you got going on?
Oh, here, there, and everywhere. Bros Before Pros. I'll be back on that soon.
We've been hearing that for a month, pal.
Yeah, well, I've been sick for a month, pal.
Well, welcome to planet Earth in 2025. You can't avoid getting sick anymore.
It's the first time I've had something last for a full month that isn't, surgery related.
Anytime I get one now, it feels like it lingers that long. Obviously, I have some underlying health issues that help with that, but yeah. But yeah, check out Bros Before Pros, not Bros Before Hoes. That's a different thing. Randy, what about you, man?
Well, obviously, Tuesdays you find me here at Giggity Giles on X, and with the Super Bowl this Sunday, my fellow Sports Brew compatriots and I will be doing our preview and breakdown of what we think is going to happen. So just Google Sports and Brew, and you'll find the goodness that is just us drinking and saying dumb shit the entire time.
I'm sure NFL will get their desired result. But
You're probably right. Just don't. Let's not put it into existence. I don't want to put it out there.
Pat Riley wants it to happen.
I don't even know what their desired result was. My thing is, the NFL's fucking rigged. So, like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. We will see you next week right here, Fandom Empire Live. I apologize for the technical side of things. It's going to take some time to get used to this new hosting platform. To Johnny and Randy, thank you for your patience. I don't remember the last time we were on here doing a 3-hour stream. Been a couple years, but it was fun. Have a great night. Stay safe. We'll see y'all next week.